ready to go. So I hope that we haven't lost it. We probably have 10 people here laughing at me. Dave, can I do an intro real quick? And then we have our draft in 4 minutes.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. This started off really great, but I guess you get your worst moments out of the way. Now you're all set. So anyhow, my name is Zach Krueger. I am your host of Roster Locked, a best ball podcast. I'm super stoked to be bringing this to you all. I kind of had this idea about maybe a month and a half ago or so, where the goal is just to kind of find a way to connect the best ball community, those familiar with the format, as well as those maybe not familiar with the format, because sometimes people are afraid to hop into a new format that they've never played before. And it seems like best ball is one of those things that people hear a lot about. They do not always get a chance to do it because maybe they're not quite familiar with it. So I wanted to use this as a platform that was both educational as well as helpful to maybe those who have not played it before. So I reached out to Dave, who is fittingly my guest on the show for tonight after he helped me troubleshoot some things. Ironically, given now what I have happening, but Dave and I killed it prior to that.
Absolutely.
So everything is good. You guys got the rough live version, but the edited version will look a little bit better than that because now we got it straightened out. Anyhow, I wanted to have Dave on, obviously, because he helped me out with this. He helped me get it started. He's also a super sharp mind. He is the co-owner and one of the senior fantasy analysts over at RotoViz. He is on the flagship podcast with Curtis Patrick, if you're familiar with that. If not, check it out. You can just find it probably wherever podcasts are at. I usually listen on Apple Podcasts, and it's just a really great show. So, Dave, thank you for having me on. Thank you for putting your talking skills to work early while I figure out my life over here. But I think we're going to be good to go from here on out.
Yeah, of course. Glad to be here. Like I've said to you before, I really like the concept of the show. I always think it's fun to just watch how a draft unfolds, see the different way that people approach it. So I'm sure at some point you're going to have on some people that take a very interesting path through it. I play some best ball, not as much as others, but we have a lot of awesome tools at RotoViz, some of which I think we will take a peek at tonight that should be very helpful as we make our way through this. So pumped to be here and get this thing rocking and rolling.
Definitely. As far as some of the tools go at RotoViz, I do have some that I want to explore tonight. One of the ones that I do not leave any draft with is or I do not go into any draft with, is the Roster Construction Explorer, which is really just an awesome tool that RotoViz has. They have it for both fan ball or best ball 10s, as well as FFPC. So we'll probably pull that up at some point in time later on tonight just to kind of take a look at it. I have the screen share up. You can see that our draft is starting in a minute and 30 seconds. If we did go over here real quickly, I'll just show you what the Roster Construction Explorer looks like, because it really is a fantastic tool. And for the FFPC, it pulls data from the last, 4 years, since 2017, where you can go in here and you can sort it by league type. You can sort it by roster type. You can choose your focus positions. If you want to see what a win rate looks like with, say, 3 quarterbacks on a roster, you can sort that, and then you can come down here and you'll see what it looks like with 3 quarterbacks plus a 2 tight end build, a 3 tight end board build, a 4 tight end build, and so on. It's a really awesome tool. So we'll definitely take a look at that later. And then in addition to that, there's the FFPC Command Center, which we might need tonight, Dave, because I'm worried that some people who are in this chat are also in our league and they're going to be sniping us. So we might need to find a way to find some ADPs that they're not seeing on their boards at home.
Absolutely. I see a couple of sharp names in this draft, I'm assuming. We got Jack in the chat, too. We got Frank. Happy to see them in here. Isn't also Michael Dubner of RotoViz fame in this draft with us as well? And Fantasy Mojo. There's some names in here. This is a little worrisome.
Yeah, I had joked earlier on Twitter, but it was only like a half joke that probably the dumbest thing I could have done was try to promote this draft in advance and let a bunch of sharps know that we're going to be hanging out in this draft room. It's a really great way to get canceled when you don't look like you know what you're doing and all these people are sniping your players. But hopefully that will not be the case. Hopefully we'll be the ones out here taking their money when this thing is all said and done. But the draft is officially underway and things are going to get started here. We can talk a little bit about the early picks, Dave. I feel like at this point in time, the early picks have just kind of been beaten to death. And we kind of know a lot about these high-profile names, guys like Alvin Kamara, Jonathan Taylor, Travis Kelce. You just see at the top of the board there. What is your preferred strategy drafting from a spot like the 108? Are we going full Vizzy with 0 RB, or are we open to a running back if one falls to us?
So If the right running back were to fall to us, maybe we would. However, I highly doubt the possibilities of that, which means that we are going 0 running back. We're going to show everybody how it's done.
We're going to show everyone how it's done. And one of the things that I really like here, I was actually talking to a friend of mine about a little bit earlier, and I recently did an article over at Rotoballer, which is where you can find my work, Rotoballer, and as well as RotoViz. But is a tight end start, which I think is a very interesting start for these FFPC drafts. The one thing I haven't really had the opportunity to try prior to drafting FFPC best balls this year was really hammering out not just one, but maybe even sometimes 2 tight ends early because of that tight end premium scoring, which really makes things a little interesting when you're on the clock and you don't necessarily want to go running back, and maybe you don't love receiver either.
All right.
Now,
okay.
Where this gets really, really interesting right now, perhaps, is if Derrick Henry is sitting there, but I don't think that he's.
Sort us on running back if you don't mind.
Source by running back, sure.
Yep. All right. So you got Derrick Henry, Cam Akers, Zeke, Aaron Jones, Nick Chubb. None of those guys are super intriguing to me in terms of building this core round, except maybe Henry. So what do we have at wide receiver? I know Travis Kelce's already gone, so I don't.
Yeah.
We got Adams, Hill, Diggs, Justin Jefferson. Tight end. Let's look at tight end quickly here, because the one thing I'm wondering, if George Kittle is around, we could also incorporate him.
Kittle is there and Waller is gone.
Wow, Waller's gone before Kittle.
Mm-hmm.
That is something I've yet to see in any of these drafts. All right. I want to go. Let's go true 0. Well, I mean, you could go with a tight end. I want to go with a wide receiver.
Okay, let's grab a wide receiver then. The one for me would be Devontae Adams.
Yep, that is for me too.
Okay, so that's a pretty easy pick. We're going to go ahead and go Devontae. We are throwing out the wide receiver position early, and we're going to get busy on y'all tonight. It's usually one of my preferences if I can, unless just the craziest of players falls to me, where I will try to maybe do a running back in the first round, even at like the, after the midway point. But really, once I'm into like that 7th or 8th round pick or later, 7th or 8th round slot or later, I'm probably more interested in going tight end or wide receiver at this point. Again, especially with the tight end premium scoring, it really makes it tempting. So we probably don't need to look at running back for a bit. You want to just stick on wide receiver here? We've got some players going over here on the side.
We'll stick on it because I highly doubt that there's any way that things get back to us. Yeah, there you go. So Kittle's off the board. So we're gonna zone in now on the wide receivers. So the natural question here, Zach, is how many wide receivers are we going to try to go with before we pivot off of wide receiver?
So given the settings, as far as the roster format goes with FFPC, and I think I can even pull it up down here. I can. If you look down here where it says roster spots, you got 1 quarterback, 2 running backs, 2 receivers, a flex spot. You have 2 flex spots, plus tight end, kicker, and defense. So I know some people, they don't want to fill out their roster too much where they're already investing bench spots early, but FFPC is interesting in that if you really wanted to, you could theoretically go with even 4 wide receivers right out the gate, with the anticipation that maybe you're filling out the 2 flex spots plus your receiver spots with those first 4 picks. I don't have a problem with going 4. I usually try to probably go at least 3, and then see who's on the board at 4 when it makes it back to me in that 4th round. What do you think about that, Dave?
Yeah, so generally I would be looking probably to at least go with 5 of them.
Right out the gate?
Right out of the gate. And then getting 8 to 9 on the team total. Those tend to have the highest win rates in best ball leagues, as you can find from the Best Ball Roster Construction Explorer. The other thing that we'll have to talk about too, how many more picks till we're up?
We're on the clock right now. And the top guys we got here: Justin Jefferson, AJ Brown, DeAndre Hopkins, and then you got like DK Metcalf and Calvin Ridley, who aren't really going in these ranges, so they're not worth talking about just yet.
So actually, as Jack just pointed it in the chat, Aaron Jones is there, which is interesting, which would make me I actually do really like Aaron Jones a lot this year and think there's a lot of room for him to do really well. But let's stick with the wide receivers here. Who would be your top wide receiver?
For me, it's between Jefferson and Brown. I kind of want to go with Brown mainly because I just don't think there's a lot of targets to be had right now as far as competition for targets in Tennessee's offense. So I'd be going Brown unless you can talk me out of it in 15 seconds.
I probably could, but let's go with Brown, and then I'll talk us into Brown even more.
Okay, so we've got some time now. We are between picks. Jack, I do appreciate the comment there. Dave is definitely managing this as I sit here on the board, but I do appreciate. So give us the pros and cons of A.J. Brown real quick, Dave. I'm going to pull up the roster construction explorer for a second here so we can talk a little bit about that too.
Yep. So I guess the obvious con one that you could have would be that you're looking at a team like Tennessee that maybe prevents A.J. Brown from getting as much volume as you might see for a guy like Devontae Adams. However, you now have Corey Davis gone. Jonnu Smith is gone. This is a team that Brown is clearly, by and large, the main weapon in the passing game. So that might offset some of the lack of total team passing volume that you might have. We've now seen him do it for a couple of seasons, looking like one of the best young wide receivers, one of the best wide receivers overall in the game. So I do feel really good about that. I guess something that you could say negatively too about Justin Jefferson as to why we would pivot and go with Brown is, like you said, there might be more competition for targets there. The Vikings have been a team that have tended to want to run the ball more. Adam Thielen, actually, Curtis Patrick and I talked about this recently, but Adam Thielen has been better than people seem to realize. And actually, he's put up a couple of top 12 finishes in the last 3 years, which is pretty impressive. It's also possible that Jefferson takes a little bit of a step backward in his second year, although for me, that's unlikely. But I will say that how good A.J. Brown can't be understated. So it's not out of the realm of reasonableness to go with him over Justin Jefferson.
I agree with you. And the thing too that I just think with A.J. Brown is he has been such a stud these first 2 years. He's really just been that guy who is super reliable. Last year we saw him play when he was injured. I was listening to a podcast earlier today. They were even talking about how if they remember correctly, which I believe they were, A.J. Brown basically spent the majority of the season injured in some way or another. And all he did was dominate targets, post fantasy points, and have huge weeks for his fantasy drafters. He's one of those guys who I think we're getting him in the second round right now. I think at some point in time, even if it's not this year, he's going to turn to a pick where we're taking him in the first round, possibly even around that Devontae Adams range, if something changes just a little bit with either the how the offense is run, or maybe it's just it's just Brown and Tannehill taking the next step forward together as an offense and really leading a little bit more of an aerial assault in Tennessee.
Yep. And I mean, I guess the other great thing you could say last year, it was a wide receiver 43% of the time. That's a very impressive rate. Also had 14% wide receiver 2 performances. So, I definitely think that there's a lot to like about Brown.
Oh, I absolutely agree. We are about to be on the clock again, Dave. So we'll talk about the roster construction explorer after we make our third and fourth round picks. Are we sticking with wide receiver again? I'm looking at all the picks right now.
Yep.
And if I were to pick an interesting guy that's falling a little bit right now, it could if we're talking running back, I think DeAndre Swift right now, who's dropping a little bit, could possibly be interesting. I don't think Clyde Edwards-Helaire is bad, but I'm not at all committed to going running back here. I still don't mind starting wide receiver if that's the way we wanted to go. Or we do have Mark Andrews on the clock, who definitely probably won't make it back to us by the 5th round. We'd have to take him the 3rd or 4th if we wanted to go that route.
So as I've talked to you about before, I am not sold on Mark Andrews. So I think we can not worry about him, not let him factor into our decision. I don't feel like he's the tight end that's going to give us the separation we need for it to make sense to go here. At this point, I don't think any of the running backs seem uber attractive to me. Although I actually do think we're going to see a pretty good. Oh, CEH is gone, right? I kind of want to take Najee Harris just because I love Najee Harris, but I would say that here we go back and we keep pounding on wide receiver.
Okay. So we're going to look back at wide receiver here real quick. And then I think we could even talk about the running backs after these 2 picks, and we get into the roster construction explorer, because one thing that I do think is interesting when we're talking about running backs, and particularly drafting this early, is the possibility of another running back jump, kind of like we saw last year with the big 5 running backs in Dobbins, Akers, Swift, Jonathan Taylor, and then CEH. and how CEH kind of leapfrogged all of them after the NFL draft. We are on the clock now, and Michael Thomas just went, who is kind of who I wanted, but I definitely don't hate these other guys who are hanging around here. Keenan Allen is an excellent option. He's consistently one of the best route runners in the league. He's always posting big seasons. He had just shy of 1,000 yards last year, and then you got Terry McLaurin airing it out with Ryan Fitzpatrick in 2021, which isn't a bad looking pick either. Do we need to see any other positions, or what are you thinking here, Dave?
No, I think that we go Keenan Allen here. This guy ranked 2 in expected per game last year. Wasn't efficient, which I don't think he needs to be on, because he was ranked 5th in targets, ranked 69th in fantasy points over expectations, still finished as the wide receiver 6 in PPR. People think he's older than he is. He's still younger than 30. He's going to get 1 million targets. I think he's going to be fine playing with that young quarterback, and Justin Herbert pound it.
All right. We went ahead and got Keenan Allen. We are good to go there. I agree with you. He's a guy who I had on a couple of teams last year. When you have him, he's just the most reliable of targets for any quarterback who plays with him. And he's always open. He's always finding ways to get the ball and get you those fantasy points, which is ultimately what we're looking for. If we wanted to go 4th wide receiver, I think this is where things get a little bit more interesting. Mainly because, first of all, we're going to get our 4th guy, and that could be it. But then also this 4th round range is really presenting us with a lot of good wide receivers, and I feel like this is kind of the range where you're just hoping you get the right one who's going to end up spiking and turning in a top 12 wide receiver season when it's all said and done. Is there a guy here who you're liking a little bit more than perhaps some of the others on the board?
Yeah, this is an interesting group of players in that I feel like I could tell myself a compelling narrative negatively or positively for any of these players. Just looking through the list here. Oddly enough, T. Higgins, I'm almost like really interested here, but we don't know if Cincinnati is going to go with Jamar Chase or another pass catcher that could throw things off for him. So I think that for me right now, he's not the pick. And I actually might lean towards Chris Godwin or DJ Moore, to be honest.
Okay. I'm completely fine with either of those picks. Terry McLaurin, I think, is interesting because I do love the idea of him playing with Ryan Fitzpatrick. I think that he could be really, really solid. We do have a chat in here. Amari, if he's there, did he just go? He just went.
Yeah, he just got taken.
And then Jack Miller even pointed out Julio Jones, which I love that, but he's also have a 60th overall ADP. He could be even back there with us at round 5 if we were really lucky. I don't hate DJ Moore. I like Chris Godwin. I'm not afraid to take Godwin despite, somewhat of a disappointing season last year. I think that we need to take everything that happened in 2020 in stride and realize that it was a weird year for everybody in a lot of different ways.
Yeah. So one of the questions was no concern about Darnold when it comes to DJ for DJ Moore. Mm-hmm. I actually am not super concerned about making the transition there. I know that Darnold never really looked that good, but I think that a lot of that was situational. And I think that there's enough players there in Carolina's offense that Moore should still have the opportunity where he's not going to be getting, like crazy coverage all the time. That Darnold should still be able to dump it off to him. And really, I just think that Moore is so good that he can overcome some of those shortcomings that you might have. And I'm not convinced that Darnold is like complete garbage. If I pop into I don't know how much longer till we're up again.
We just hit. We'll be able to mess around.
I might get back to that in a minute.
Second.
Because there's a couple other thoughts I had on that.
And it's a good question.
Yeah, can you pop over to a running back quickly?
I can.
ETN, Jacobs, Williams, Carson, Hunt, Gordon. All right, who do we have at tight end?
Tight end, we have Kyle Pitts, who everyone is insanely high on right now. Which I don't necessarily hate, but I'm not doing it. I'm kind of fine with no tight end at the moment.
Yeah. Okay. Let's go back to wide receiver then.
Yep.
I don't think we need to go running back quite there. All right. So who do you feel most comfortable with here?
I would go with DJ Moore. Do you like him? I like him. I can even comment on this whole Darnold thing because I'm with you too. I don't think we need to worry too much about it. So you want to take DJ Moore and we'll talk a little bit about this.
Yep.
You were saying that you're not too worried about what Sam Darnold can bring to the table, which I think is a very key point to make, especially because I kind of view Sam Darnold somewhat in the light that I do the situation with with Carson Wentz, where very bad situations where you can definitely look at them and say that there were parts of their game that did not translate well, on the field, that things just didn't work out well. But then it's also kind of important to consider too what dumpster fires some of these scenarios were that they were being placed in. Like Sam Darnold wasn't failing in an offense that was built to support him and that was built to make him or any players on the field for that matter successful. He was instead playing on a team that's got the second overall pick in this year's draft, which tells you kind of the situation that he's leaving. And I'm not too worried about him in Carolina. I'm at least willing to give him a shot. And we've seen wide receivers put up big numbers before, even with bad quarterback play.
Yeah, that's one of the things I was going to hit upon. At this point in his career, like Teddy Bridgewater is fine, but Teddy Bridgewater isn't the type of quarterback that's going to elevate his receivers. And if you look at his college career, wasn't playing with a quarterback that was anybody really of note. So at this point in Moore's career, I don't think he's shown that he needs to be supported by an absolutely stellar quarterback. He played with Cam Newton, Kyle Allen, Teddy Bridgewater. With those three quarterbacks, he has an adjusted yards per attempt between 8 and 9. And if you look at Sam Darnold's adjusted yards per attempt on his career, he's in the with guys like Robbie Anderson, Braxton Berrios, kind of in that same range, around 8 adjusted yards per attempt. So I think that he's probably going to be okay. And I'm not too concerned.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. And on top of that, if you said Bridgewater doesn't necessarily elevate all of the players around him, but something happened in that offense where we saw a number of players post career highs in 2020. Robbie Anderson in yards. The three I think were, if I'm not mistaken, DJ Moore, Curtis Samuel, and Robbie Anderson to all some degree or another posting career highs. Curtis Samuel had a breakout season that he parlayed into a new contract in Washington back with Ron Rivera. So players were definitely being elevated there. But if you want to even maybe say that was more Joe Brady than it was Teddy Bridgewater, then I think that Darnold could bring the arm talent and possibly just a little something extra to that offense in 2021 and really make it hum if everything else is going on around it. And having back Christian McCaffrey is definitely an added bonus as well.
Curious to see what Frank does here. Also, good point. Do you think we pronounce that SETI T about the rapport between Darnold and Robbie Anderson? That is a really interesting point. And I do think that it does make sense also for Anderson to be a guy targeting late, because for whatever reason, people are going to forget about him. And the other key thing there too is that Anderson did really well last season, much better than people would have expected, without scoring basically any touchdowns between like weeks 1 and I forget exactly when it was. But so we might see some more touchdowns from him this year. So I do really like that point.
Yeah, I agree. He was solid with Robbie Anderson. Real quick, we got a couple picks. If everyone else could slow down, we can take a look at this real quick here. But I don't know if that's how it's going to go. But yeah, if you just take a look at these quick numbers here, if you can read them, we have in 2016, 2017, 2019, those were all the Darnold seasons where, Robbie Anderson, 12.5 PPR, 11.5 PPR, 10.1 PPR. It boosted to 14.1 last year, but that was, with Teddy Bridgewater, and you still see a nice little floor being created there even during the Darnold years. So I think the rapport with Darnold could definitely be beneficial to Robbie Anderson as well. And you can get, for this matter, both of them so cheap. If you want to talk about cheap stacks, it's definitely one that I have no problem with chasing. We are going to be up here in just a second, Dave.
Yep.
And
why don't we quickly review who we have?
Yeah, real quickly, I can. We started off the draft with Devontae Adams at the 108, and then we ran it back with A.J. Brown at the 205. At the 308, we went ahead with Target Hog Keenan Allen, and then we went 405 back with DJ Moore. So we are officially going to be taking this zero RB build underway. We are now on the clock. Kareem Hunt, Kyle Pitts, and Josh Jacobs are the last 3 picks.
So I will say that from a win rate perspective in the roster construction explorer, we don't need to grab our wide receiver 5 right now. I actually am kind of intrigued of maybe grabbing one of the running backs, with one of the guys that I actually would be thinking about here being, did Kareem Hunt get taken?
He just got taken.
I had my eyes on Kareem Hunt. So we got Javonte Williams, Melvin Gordon, Chase Edmonds. Oof, I'm really not in love with any of those guys. I actually think we go back and we grab, actually wouldn't mind Noah Fant here, to be honest.
Yeah, I was
Robert
actually
Woods,
thinking
Jamar Chase.
I was thinking Fant as well.
All right, let's do it then because we only have a couple seconds.
Yep, I was thinking Fant is an option. So we'll take him, and then we can look at this other running back. Or if we want to, we could even go 2 tight ends. I'm sorry, wide receiver. Or we could go 2 tight ends if we want to.
Yep.
So here are the the wide receivers who we have here. And there's just such value in this range that it's kind of almost crazy to me. To see some of the guys who are hanging around here. You got Robert Woods, Adam Thielen, who we just talked about a little bit ago, Cooper Kupp, Tyler Lockett, Chase Claypool. I really don't hate any of these guys. I think sometimes it comes back to liking players, hating ADPs, and there are definitely some ADPs I think are looking like tremendous values here at these spots where players could outplay where we're taking them right now at the wide receiver position.
Yeah, and then to quickly touch upon that Noah Fant pick, Noah Fant, in the range of outcomes tool we have at RotoViz that I pulled together, which is looking at historical production from a player's last 2 years, grouping them in with similar players from years past, and then coming up with projection for the coming year. It has Noah Fant as a top 6 player. I know that Cortland Sutton's going to be back to take away some targets. Obviously, you have Jerry Jeudy. But out of those guys, even with Drew Lock there, I actually probably feel the best about what I can expect from Fant and how he's going to operate in that offense. With the tight end premium scoring, I actually feel pretty good about that pick for him here. Frank dropped a note too about how he wouldn't be surprised if Hawkinson is going before Andrews, before the end of August. If that's kind of the norm, I wouldn't be surprised by that either. I actually think that you could make a case for Fant and Hawkinson both ahead of Andrews just because of how little passing volume that team I expect will have.
Yeah, and I agree with you too. I think that's kind of one of the harder things really when it just comes with the Ravens is there's times where we invest value into a stat like target share, and then there's a time where I'm just not as worried about it because I see that the raw numbers are just so incredibly low that that a high target share for Marquise Brown does not mean the same as a target share does for Michael Thomas and the Saints offense. Marquise Brown getting 25% targets is, it feels like he's getting 20 targets a season in that offense compared to something like you would with the Saints. So on one hand, you can probably easily make a case that Andrews is the favorite target for Lamar, but it doesn't really move the needle much for me when I consider who he's playing with. And I really like some of these late round tight ends here, so I don't need to rush to them.
Yeah, I have another note too after we make this pick on Andrews. So wait, we have not grabbed a running back yet. Are there any running backs that are interesting? Melvin Gordon, AJ Dillon, Leonard Fournette, Raheem Mostert. I almost wouldn't. I don't know. All right, who do we have at quarterback?
Yeah, and I was going to say, this might be the time to take a quarterback, especially.
You know what I want to do?
You want to stack Herbert with Keenan Allen?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
I'm with you. That's an easy one.
Yep.
We'll do that.
We should definitely do that. I really like that. So my other note I was going to say about Mark Andrews is one of the things that's interesting is you can look at a lot of things for him. Like I think it's like air yards per target, depth of target. There's a couple other like metrics that you would look at for a tight end or a wide receiver that he's in the top 3 in the league in just about all of them, except for the one that really matters being the total targets. And it's interesting how it can drop him down. Curtis and I talked about this in one of the pods. I wish I had the stats with me, but it's actually pretty staggering. So it's worth kind of looking into that relationship if there's anybody out there that's wondering why I'm so anti-Andrews.
I do have it up here, Dave, as far as in the NFL Stat Explorer career detail. What was it you were looking for with Andrews?
I kind of forget like the specific things because I had them ranked out versus other players. But actually, if you go back to the fantasy stats page, we might even be able to.
Sure.
Yep. Right. So like you can see he's good in a lot of these measures, but like the expected points per game comes in at 8. And I guess my point there is when your expected points per game only rank 8th, it's hard to fit into that higher stratosphere with Waller, Kelsey, and Kittle at this point.
Especially when you're taking him inside the top 10 at his position. So, and in some cases, he's going closer to the tight end 6, tight end 5 range. I probably said that backwards. I should say 5 and then 6, but you get what I'm saying.
Yep.
That's kind of where he's going. And I think that you're right. I think the expected points, which is a metric that I really like over at RotoViz, is definitely very telling of the volume that he is not receiving, despite what we may think at times. And then on top of that, the fantasy points over expectation, which works hand in hand with expected fantasy points, is 11th. So even though, he was a top tight end and had a lot of spike weeks, he was not one of the most efficient tight ends that we could have possibly added, especially when you're talking about this particular range.
Yeah.
You may have been able to find a little bit better. Dave, real quickly.
Oh, yeah. Hold on. We got a question that I wanted to address. Which app was that SETI that you're asking about?
Yeah. Can you let us know?
But we can answer that. But Zach, you had something you wanted to pivot to.
I wanted to pull off the roster construction thing real quickly here, just to kind of talk about it, because I do love to get in here. And then we'll be up in just a second here. So one of the things that's interesting with the roster construction explorer is what you go into and what you take a look at. And some ways that I like to start my drafts in particular is just looking at the raw win rates when I don't adjust anything here in the filters. When you start adjusting with the filters, that's when things start to get a little bit crazy. But when you look at them just unfiltered, you can really kind of get a sense for where some win rates are popping up at. And some of the hacks that we talk about over at RotoViz are really some of kind of like the basics for how things work. So if you look here at quarterback, you see that the only above average quarterback win rate that we see is with the 3 quarterback build. Obviously, there are other ways you can get to a win rate without the 3 quarterback build, but I think 3 quarterbacks is a safe way to go. I'm just checking here on our pick real quick. So when I go into a draft, I actually like to set this filter here to 3 quarterbacks, because I know that is a win rate that is often going to provide me a little bit of a boost. And then you see here that it adjusts to 8.8%, and that gives me a little bit of a starting point for a draft. Real quickly, I can't show it now because I pulled it up here. I may be able to actually, but 3 defenses also has a very high win rate. So when I go into a draft with this tool again, I also like to preset 3 defenses in to kind of see how my win rates are going to be adjusted based on who and what I am picking and when I am picking them. Do you ever find yourself doing this with the roster construction explorer, Dave, when you're going in? Do you like this tactic? Is it a noob way to be doing it, or are you okay with that? I can't believe I just used the word noob. I sound like my brother.
I have never heard that term, if we're being honest, but yeah, no, I definitely always kind of have it. Like I always, before I'm drafting, pop in, take a quick look around, review some of the things, and think about a way I could try something new out with that build that I'm doing. I'll also monitor while the draft is going on. Because I think that it's really useful too. Like if I'm changing my plan on the fly to see the other moves that could affect me if I made them down the line. So I will say I'm starting to consider running back. I have dropped some guys into the queue that we might be able to wait on that I find interesting. Do Drake, Gurley, James Conner, Le'Veon Bell, Devin Singletary, David Johnson get any juices flowing for you?
So we do have 42 seconds, so we're going to cover this stuff quickly here.
Yeah.
David Johnson, I am fine with just staying completely away from.
Yep.
I'm really not that interested in him. I think he may have even just gone. I'm not seeing him here. I love Tony Pollard. Kenyon Drake, I think, is interesting with all the money that they're paying him. He could possibly be catching some passes. I also really like Leonard Fournette. I've been drafting him up everywhere. I know he'd be a little bit early on him based on ADP, but I like Lenny as well.
Okay.
We have 15 seconds.
Feel free to make the pick as you see fit here.
All right. I'm going to go with Fournette. I'll kind of explain that why in a little bit here, but I'll go with Fournette, and we can take a look at this other pick. Where are you leaning for the now 8th round pick? Do we need to get a second quarterback before we get back to the 9th?
Do we need to get the second quarterback before we get to the 9th? Well, actually, let me very quickly go into the roster construction explorer. Let me pull up the QB2. So QB2 before the 9th, the win rate there. I'm actually thinking that we're okay waiting until around the 10th that would be wide receivers there. So hold on, got to change my focus position here. I was like, wait, that doesn't make sense. Oof. Yeah, we have a little bit better of win rates there. Let me just check out one other thing. So I'm looking at round 9 versus round 11. For 2 quarterbacks. I think it's actually going up if we wait a little bit longer. I think that we're okay to wait for a little bit. So we, at this point, have the 1 running back. We have the one running back. We got the tight end. Wouldn't mind really banging wide receiver a little bit more unless Myles Gaskin is there. There's a risk in that pick in that the team very easily could go with a running back, but if they don't, I actually expect pretty good things from Gaskin this year. I thought he was very, very, very surprising last year. I think the team maybe takes a little bit step forward on offense, and at this point in the draft, I have no problem taking him.
I agree with your take on Gaskin. It's actually been interesting because he's a guy who I expected to, at some point in time already, watch a running back come over and take his place, and for whatever reason, it has not happened yet. And there he sits essentially atop the Miami depth chart right now as their potential RB1. And he has had solid production last season. He kind of had a few games where he got injured and he missed time, at which time Salvin Ahmed, I believe is how you pronounce it. He emerged and had himself a pretty decent fantasy season. But I do like Gaskin. I think he's a good pick in this range. He does kind of everything we like in a zero RB build. He's able to run the ball. He's able to catch passes. He's definitely one of those players who is going to contribute in all areas of the field. And then we really just have to hope he survives the draft.
Yep. And, I guess you could also say, too, that even if they do add a running back in the draft, it's not 100% sealed that means Gaskin is completely rendered useless. To quickly get back to the tool that we had been in there, was the NFL Stat Explorer. That's basically a tool that just lets you get like a ton of information on one particular player. So if you wanted to very quickly get a sense of what Mark Andrews had done in his career, there's a tab that will show you his career detail. You can look at game logs from each season. And then on the first tab, we have rankings in specific things. We have like a look that will show you what percentage of games they're scoring over certain thresholds, and then also a really neat chart that's color coded that's going to let you quickly get a sense of how often that player was a tight end 1, tight end 2, tight end 3 in the given weeks of a season, and you can do these for different ranges. So it's actually probably one of the most powerful tools we have.
It is. It's a really great tool. I reference it a lot. I probably have every single article with at least one picture of a graph or something in there. And Dave, I'm not sure who took Myles Gaskin just now, but we will not be taking Myles Gaskin. Fantasy Mojo did.
Oh, Fantasy Mojo. Well, come on, man.
We can talk to him on Twitter about that later on, but just that's why he tuned in for this.
Yes.
At some point in time, it was going to happen. He's probably one of the listeners. But where do you want to go ahead instead of that? Because
I almost want to go back to wide receiver,
which we can do. We definitely have some interesting options here.
There's two names here that I'm pretty interested in. One of them being Mr. Will Fuller, who I have always been a big fan of. Will Fuller, really strong season last year before the PED issue. I could see how somebody could hold that against him, especially worrying about him without PEDs. But the thing is, when he's played, he's absolutely just been tremendous. So I feel good about him. I'm actually also feeling very excited about Curtis Samuel's outlook in Washington. Do either of those names intrigue you?
I do like those players. The only thing I'm going to say, because I'm with you on those guys, tight ends have been kind of flying off like crazy.
Oh, good point. Yep.
And I don't want to get stuck possibly with like Cole Kmet as our tight end too.
Yep.
And Irv Smith is a guy who I like.
There's an obvious pick for us here. We got to go Jared Cook.
Do you want to do Jared Cook?
Oh yeah. No doubt at all. We got to go Jared Cook. Jared Cook should be going way earlier in drafts.
This is all right. So this is like a super sharp move because people who are drafting are definitely not doing what Dave just suggested that we do, which is why he's also here. He's here to help me find some of these hacks here real quick because he's absolutely right on this. Dave, why don't you explain to us the Jared Cook pick because his ADP is not at all where we just took him at. So the floor is yours.
Yeah, well, I mean, it kind of comes down to the fact that Jared Cook, I've seen him in some drafts going as like tight end 17. And I think talent-wise, he's better than that. And then he's also stepping into a situation where he's basically taking over for Hunter Henry in an offense that should be pretty decent, playing with a very good rookie quarterback. So what's not to like? I mean, even if you looked at his numbers from the last 2 years with the Saints, where things were kind of down for him a little bit, he'd still come out and project in the range of outcomes tool as a tight end 1 this year. Hunter Henry, let me very quickly pull up. I don't know if I can grab those numbers right quickly with what I have open, but Hunter Henry.
Here, I can pull up Hunter Henry if you want me to.
Actually, I got it right here.
Okay.
So, I mean, with the way that I would blend his stats from the last 2 years to have the most predictive power to looking ahead, you're still looking at around 6 targets a game. And his projection puts him out around like 10 points per game. You might think Hunter Henry's better than Jared Cook. I don't think there's that much of a difference. So I think I really like Cook's chances of finishing in top 12 this year.
Yeah, no,
and you have to love the stack, obviously.
You do. I love the stack. And then the other thing too with Jared Cook is like people forget, and I know he's like 37 or he's up there in age, but he is an extremely athletic tight end. He's one of those guys who for a few years we kind of waited on him to break out, and then it finally happened. And he's more or less been one of those more reliable tight ends who you can slot in here. To get him here in this round in what was it? We just took him in the 8th round. To get him in the 8th round, to get him at a time where we can stack him with Herbert, stack him with Keenan Allen, which is a good offense. And on top of that, again, keeping in mind FFPC tight end premium scoring, I think that Cook is a really solid pick right here. Other than the fact that I'm definitely disappointed Donald Parham's season is no longer a thing. XFL superstar, but I do love the Jared Cook pick here. I think that's definitely kind of leapfrogging some of the other value that we had on the board there.
Yep. Can I just share 3 quick things on Jared Cook when you were talking about his like athletic profile? And like you said, it's been a long time, so it doesn't really matter that much.
Yeah.
But if I remember correctly, he had a 99th percentile burst. His speed score, I think, was like 97th or 98th. And then also his freak score for tight ends, which is like we just kind of re-rolled that up. Matt Spencer did some awesome work on that. I want to say he was above the 96th percentile there as well. So he was like a real freak athlete, which I think for tight ends is the main thing you are looking for. Grab Parham too, Frank. I like that idea.
Yeah, I mean, we might as well stack it all up that way. Yeah. Frank's in the draft, so he'll float out some bad recommendations for the sake of saving himself, I'm sure. But yeah, absolutely. I like Zach McCarl in there. Jared Cook is what I tuned in for. Hey, we're hitting it big on the debut episode. Can
I completely derail us here? We skipped the 7th inning stretch.
I know. I was just thinking that. Let's get the 7th inning stretch after the 10th round. I think that'll give us enough time to kind of talk about what we got set up here. Okay. We're going to be up in round 9, but you're right. We did. I've
been waiting for this.
Yeah. Well, and the people have been too, and they don't realize it yet, but they have been as well. So we'll definitely get to that in just a second here. Yep. I had teed up, at least I put him in the queue, Irv Smith. Yep. Irv Smith is now gone, and then we also need to be considering quarterback.
Yeah.
Let me see who we have at QB.
So at QB, I think right now an interesting one is probably Matt Ryan. Trevor Lawrence actually is kind of interesting. Or Ryan Tannehill actually is probably the name I like the most. Or Kirk Cousins. I like Tannehill and Cousins here as options.
Yep. I like any of these guys right here. I think that, and I'll have to go back and look at it. I haven't done an FFPC draft in about a week or so, maybe 2. But the ADPs have been changing. I know quarterbacks are going super early. The fact that we are about to hit pick 108, and we have 3 guys outside the top 100 still sitting on here kind of tells me that what I expected to happen is officially taking place just a little bit, and that is that quarterbacks are not going as early as they once were, which is nice, because that's probably in theory more correct than some may realize or some may want to acknowledge. So it's nice to see that we don't have to now rush out and get quarterbacks way earlier than we wanted to. But I like Lawrence here. I also do like Tannehill with the AJ Brown stack that we could have set up, which is super
that's
nice.
Interesting. Yep.
The only thing I don't think that we'd be able to get with the Lawrence stack, if I am not mistaken, we wouldn't be able to get something like a DJ Shark stack. So we'd be going like a naked Trevor Lawrence with Ronald Jones, or I'm sorry, who's a wide receiver who just left? Marvin Jones from Detroit. You can maybe chase something like that, but I do like some of these quarterbacks who are sitting here. Is there one particular that stands out to you before we watch him get drafted by someone else?
of the quarterbacks. Kirk Cousins does kind of stand out to me. I know like my models have him looking like a QB1 for next year. Oh, don't worry. We are going to get to the coffee and Coke. That was one of the questions. Also,
was that floated in there?
That was floated in there. And actually, we got a question too from a while back that I want to address about the Steelers receivers, but we will get to that when the time comes. So we're going to be making our pick here. Did you want to go running back or quarterback here? Sounds like you're on the quarterback thought.
There's a part of me that's on the quarterback thought, but then there's also some running backs who are just kind of sitting here, hanging out. If there's a 0 RB build, I don't even want to say it right now because this guy's probably waiting to take. He's probably waiting to hear who we say. Let's get us off the clock on the clock here real quick and get this guy off the clock, and then I'll tell you real quickly what I'm thinking here.
All right.
But okay, so we're now on the clock.
Oh, Jalen Waddle.
I know you love
Jalen Waddle.
I know you do love him.
Yeah.
So some running backs. We talked about getting Kenyon Drake about a round or two ago. He's still on the board. Tony Pollard, I think, is a staple in a 0 RB build just for the sheer fact that he's very good, and at any point in time, he could really run away with the job. I also have been drafting Jeff Wilson everywhere I can get him. So if we wanted to fade quarterback, those are 3 running backs I'm looking at. I also don't completely hate Damian Harris.
Wait, did somebody already take Gus Edwards? Because I'd put him in the queue. That's
he's gone. He's gone.
All right. To be honest with you, unless you're in love with one of these running backs, I'd probably go with Cousins.
Cousins over Tannehill?
Oh, actually, sorry, I thought Tannehill had actually got snapped. I would take Tannehill, actually.
Yeah, I like that pick.
Yeah.
All right, let's go Tannehill here. And then, we can look at a number of things here real quick before we go up, because we're going to go over this roster. We're going to make one more pick, and then it's going to be the 7th inning stretch in the 10th round. Right now, we are sitting at Ryan Tannehill, Justin Herbert, Leonard Fournette as quite literally our only running back, DJ Moore, AJ Brown, Devontae Adams, Keenan Allen, Jared Cook, and Noah Fant. So we're looking pretty good, I think. I'm not too worried about it yet, even though I'm sure there's some haters of the 0 RB strategy out there. Dave, are we chasing a running back here in the 10th?
Yeah, I kind of think it does make sense to try and get a running back here, because I do think we're reaching the point where some of these names are a little bit differentiated than the guys that will be on in a round or two. Like you mentioned, Tony Pollard, Kenyon Drake are probably kind of interesting. It would be really interesting if we paired Jones with Fournette, but I do not want to do that. Philip Lindsay later on, actually, I think could be an interesting pick. Nyheim Hines and Marlon Mack are also interesting picks. Jeffrey Wilson, though, I'm also a little bit interested by. So of the names that I just mentioned, did one of those get you more excited than the others?
So, I mean, I do love Jeff Wilson for a number of reasons, and we can talk about Jeff Wilson later on if we want to, if we decide to go with that as our pick. Kenyon Drake is getting paid way too much money to be a RB2 for the Raiders, and he's certainly a pass catcher, and Jeff Wilson's gone now, so Mojo just made this really easy for us, at least as far as that goes. Kenyon Drake is getting way too much money to be a backup running back. He is almost certain to be catching passes in this offense, and I do also think that if something happened to Josh Jacobs, that it's going to just be Kenyon Drake. Like, I don't think there's anything wrong with viewing Kenyon Drake kind of as like the light version of Tony Pollard, and I mean very light version, but a light version of Tony Pollard, whereas the guy that he's playing behind, if he goes down, like he's probably the bell cow back in that offense. And to get him, if we get him here in the 10th round, I think that's a pretty good price tag to be paying for a guy who is probably contributing anyway, and could be. I would almost, if you want a comparison, I would say this is the light stack version of I'm sorry. Now I'm blanking on it. Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb. It's Josh Jacobs and Kenyon Drake, I think, is like the softer version of that.
All right, I'll take that. Yeah, I mean, I actually don't think that that's too ridiculous. There's a comment from Seti. Didn't he Tannehill have like 5 rushing touchdowns? I actually think it was 6 or 7.
Yeah, I think Tannehill had 6 or 7.
There. Tony Pollard's gone. All right, let's just hope Kenyon Drake's around.
Well, Mojo's on the clock, so he probably doesn't want us to have who we want. But I mean, hey, if he takes Trey Sermon here, then we'll just settle for someone else. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, no, I think Tannehill's rushing upside. I can pull it up real quick here, but if you want to talk about a Konami code quarterback who maybe isn't the Konami code that the ones we generally think of are, he is not far off from it. Last year he had 266 rush yards, 7 touchdowns. So Ryan Tannehill.
Oh, Kenyon Drake's gone.
He definitely gets it for you. Shoot, man. Well, where do we want to go here? I was gonna say someone earlier, and at this point in time, I don't see why not. I would probably be either leaning with Damian Harris, or I'd be willing to do Philip Lindsay here because I like Lindsay, and I think Damian Harris just might be the lead back again for Bill and the Patriots.
Yeah, I actually think I lean towards Harris here because I think his odds of coming in and I think the odds of him having more weeks than Philip Lindsay where he actually gets into our lineup are greater.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree with that. I think he could be on the field quite a bit for the Patriots, and he was solid last season when he did get to play. So why don't we take Damian Harris here? We have a big backfield now with Super Bowl Lenny and now Damian Harris. And while we do this now, we are at a spot in the draft where we were supposed to have a little bit of a coffee break earlier on. If you have not seen Dave on Twitter recently, he kind of took some heat a while back for a coffee take of his when it was announced that Coke was releasing one of these, which is a coffee-infused Coke drink that's actually rather delicious. Dave, when you saw that someone posted this on Twitter the other day, what was your response to that? Because it was not what anybody expected to see.
Well, I mean, I personally love the drink. And as I said, this was fantastic for me because for years, I have been making a concoction of my own, which I would now like to make live for everybody.
This is why
it's 1/3. It's 1/3 coffee, and I put it in this thermos so that it wouldn't go cold. So I'm going to put in 1/3 of this into my cup. Then you do 1/3 milk.
Mm-hmm.
That goes in. And then you do 1/3 Coca-Cola. And it is just a delicious drink that was originally invented for me to try to fight off migraine headaches, but then got extended to when I was up late at night studying. I would go with this drink, and now I just kind of crave it. But yeah, the Coca-Cola with coffee that they make, it's really more of a soda than anything else, but I still really enjoyed it. It's high in sugar. I love sugar. All things good. Mm-hmm. And now, I'm glad that you were disgusted. You're going to get to see me actually consume this. Look at this nice froth at the top, if you will. Oh, yeah. And that actually is really good. I actually think it's really good. This isn't a gimmick. I actually enjoy this.
Yeah, no, I have a couple questions for you on it, but first, before I do ask you, I will say that when I heard about this, when I saw it, I did try the Coke and coffee first, which is actually surprisingly good. I think that someone who maybe doesn't have as refined of a palate may not realize that there's even coffee in there unless you give them a little friendly heads up. So it's not too strong. It's not quite what you would think as far as that goes. But then I'd also had to try the at-home original version, which Dave, let me just ask you this. Is the Coke room temperature or is it refrigerated?
So this Coke right now actually is room temperature.
And that's where I messed up. I had refrigerated my Coke, and the milk too, which is obviously understandable. Yep. But I think that I need room temperature going forward.
Yep. But yes, so the cola actually does act as the sweetener. And then also it kind of gives it a little bit different of a body by the fact that you have the bubbles and whatnot. Yeah, I think it's ingenious.
Yeah, it's very good. I think that, we need to be a little bit creative at times. We need to come up with our own things. We need to be willing to try new things, guys. So after this, head out to your local supermarket. And if you can't find dark roast Coca-Cola coffee, and they also do have caramel and vanilla, which they aren't half bad either. But if you can't find that, give Dave Singh a shot. Take a picture of it, a video of it. I don't even care what you do. Post it to Twitter. I think we need to get a movement because I did not really appreciate the way that people were coming at Dave for something that they claimed was so disgusting, but was actually far better than even I expected.
Right.
So, Dave, I appreciate you letting us into your world here, showing us how this is made, showing us how you get done more in one morning than most people do in a week. And
yes,
I'm excited to get back to this draft here, unless you have anything else to share on this before we do so.
No, but I'd like to add Justin Fields to our queue.
Yeah, we can do that. This is what people are doing. I think they're Q watching.
All right.
I think that's
it's also possible too that they like us and like these players. I suppose that's could be going on.
Yeah, I'm about to get into a family league after this, just so I can get some players who I like. No, we'll be okay. I like our build so far. I think we're doing really well. This is actually, and we can talk a little bit more about this later. But I found stacks early on this season have been hard to come by, and a couple of times that we've gotten them together, I feel like is when we just have to go out and really get our guys rather than wait for them to fall to us. If we can logically justify the pick, like ADP be damned, like we did with Jared Cook, like let's just go get our guys and keep it rolling. Is this where you want to take the quarterbacks if we have Justin Fields fall to us here?
Yeah, I actually let me take another look at the quarterbacks here. I mean, I have to look at the draft board too to see who other people have at this point. Let me view that.
Yeah.
All right. So, because they got two. There hasn't been too much action yet, but I know this isn't good radio right now.
Mm-hmm.
But
it's okay. You should have seen the beginning of the show.
Fields, Daniel Jones, Derek Carr, Winston. I actually wouldn't mind grabbing a quarterback right now. And I mean, I say, hey, we don't know exactly when people would be targeting Justin Fields. We don't know where he's going to go yet, but I think that it's very likely that wherever he lands, he's playing right away. I say we lock him up and get the second quarterback here.
Yeah, we can do that. I'm fine with that. I will say this, if I was to make one comment, I would be a little bit concerned that maybe if he goes like the 49ers, that maybe this isn't the pick and maybe they actually do roll with Garoppolo a little bit longer than we would like. But I just can't imagine them actually not playing this guy. Like, he's too explosive. He's too talented. We saw what happened when the Ravens put Lamar in. I think that Justin Fields can be a better passing version of Lamar. So if you want Fields here, I'm all down for going for that.
Do it. And I don't think that the 49ers actually think that Jimmy G is all of that good. So I don't know what incentive they really have to play him. I mean, I understand that they have been in some huge games with Jimmy Garoppolo. There's no questioning that. But it doesn't seem like they're sold. So, you know, I'm willing to take the risk here.
Yeah.
And the other thing is we can come back and get another guy later too. So we probably do need to think though about addressing the running back situation a little bit more. So I do think that of the guys that are hanging out right now, Marlon Mack, Philip Lindsay are kind of interesting. James White. I know we have Harris, so you know there's a little bit of a conflict there, but I don't think that really matters.
Yeah, well, because it'll be JJ Taylor, who's
JJ Taylor.
It'll be JJ Taylor who's actually going to be the problem for Harris there. I know you also like Zach Moss. When we kind of did our practice show, you kind of talked me into Zach Moss a little bit, and I think there's a really intriguing case for Zach Moss to be made. You know, he had a fairly solid rookie season. He was hampered by injury, possibly also by the fact that it was a COVID shortened season, but he was on the field early in that first week 1 game, which was, I believe, against the Jets. I think he even scored in that game. And it's not even necessarily like he has very much competition to overcome with Devin Singletary and now also Matt Breida on the roster, if that happens to be what the Bills go into camp with.
Yeah. So, I mean, I don't really I hate Moss, but at the same time, like the pick could kind of make sense. Now, when we've been talking about that before, that was before Matt Breida and before some talk that they might go after a back. But I still think that late enough in the draft, you can make a case because, you know, you outlined some of the reasons, but it comes back down to the idea that this is a good offense. We know that, you know, if you can get a player that's in one of these offenses, especially in a best ball league, that team has a game where they rely on him somewhat, you're probably going to get points or a guy into your lineup out of it.
Yep. Truva Hubbard, I think, is also interesting, and I also like Philip Lindsay, who we could take right here if we really wanted to.
The other name that I'm going to toss in here too that I don't know if we've mentioned is J.D. McKissic. Yeah, I know that they have more receiving options there now too. And the team should give every target that's going to McKissic to Antonio Gibson, but they haven't shown us that they did that. I don't know if I'd want to take him yet.
I think we could wait on McKissic.
I actually am honestly more interested in Hubbard than I am Marlon Mack, Philip Lindsay, or anybody there, because it's possible Hubbard finds himself in a situation where there's a team that really wants to make him a priority. And the rest of these guys, I don't know if we can say that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm fine with going with Hubbard. We can actually talk about him too, because that's something I wanted to circle back on. So you want to take Hubbard real quick, and then we can talk this pick out. So we're going to go ahead and go with Truva Hubbard here, who, and I need to pull up his pro day real quick here, but earlier on, I wanted to talk about just kind of what we're looking at when we go into these drafts before the NFL draft happens. Obviously, there's just so many uncertainties, and there are opportunities to take players who are not even on teams yet, and then we see them finally hit a team, and that value changes dramatically. Before the NFL draft, you can go and look at it. I had it in one of my articles. I don't know where it is right now. I'll pull it up here real quick just because it is interesting to see. But the way that players can just, from one point in the season, jump a number of guys based on something as simple as not just draft capital, but also landing spot, was really put on display last year. And the Chiefs unexpectedly took Clyde Edwards-Helaire in the first round of last year's draft. His ADP skyrocketed, and what we really just saw was a massive shift in how everybody was now viewing Clyde Edwards-Helaire before and after the NFL draft. I'm going to pull it up real quick. Dave, do you have anything to say about this whole idea of drafting rookies who are on teams right now at this point in the season?
Yeah, I actually like it, because what you might be able to do is get a player, cheaper than you're ever going to get him, which I think speaks to the point that you had. And I also think that Blair Andrews at RotoViz has done a lot of work that really shows that sometimes rookies are the key piece to your team, pushing things across the finish line at the end of the season. Lots of times it takes a little bit of a runway for a rookie running back to get involved, but when they do, they tend to get involved in very tremendous, matchup tilting, or in this case, best ball league tilting type of ways. So I like being able to have an opportunity on a player like that at a point where I never might get it again. And going after a guy like Hubbard, who, there's some concerns about the fact that he didn't test as well as people would have liked, although the athletic comps are still pretty good. Yes, scored 21 touchdowns in 13 games in 2019, then only scored 5, of course, in 7 games in 2020. And so people are holding some things against him. But I think that he has enough in the profile to get some NFL franchises potentially excited, at which point we could be looking at a player whose stock goes up. And the jury's out. It's possible that he is actually a very good running back, and we see a return here. So though he might be a rookie, there's some uncertainty. A lot of these guys in this range, there's a lot of uncertainty as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and that's part of it right now. Right now, part of it is capitalizing on that uncertainty, even if we don't know for sure that we will be. The hope is that we will. That I had it bite me earlier this offseason, not even with the draft, but with drafting AJ Dillon early. He was carrying like a 3rd, 4th round draft capital at one point in time because, Aaron Jones is going to Miami, or Aaron Jones was going, to the Pittsburgh Steelers, or whoever it was. Aaron Jones is going somewhere. It's going to be AJ Dillon season, and getting him, his ADP was not in the top 3. I want to say it was probably closer around 6 or 7, but it's definitely not there now. And what looked like a steal earlier is not. But I made an attempt to capitalize on some uncertainty. It didn't happen. I don't even think my process is necessarily wrong in that. There were a lot of people who were surprised that happened. It was just one of those things that didn't work out. But if it did, you were going to look really, really smart sitting there with all this AJ Dillon as people are taking him in the 2nd and 3rd rounds, and you realize you got him like the 6th or 7th.
Yep. To the question, so McKissic, I believe, is in Washington one more season. Yeah, I mean, I definitely think it's a different situation there, and Curtis Samuel probably should replace a lot of those touches. Or more should go to Gibson. There's definitely different things that they could do. I guess there's just a part of me that thinks if they don't, in comparison to these other players here, you could be looking at a pretty decent return.
Yeah, and I mean Truva Hubbard, he had a fairly solid. I'm in the wrong one right now. He had a fairly solid pro day. He ran at least according to this year. We have a 4.48 40-yard dash, 4.26 shuttle. You look at the percentiles here, not a half bad pro day. And then if we come down here, Dave, this was your tool, correct?
Yep.
You did this, so
that's one of mine.
Yep. Let's talk about it in just a second when we're off the clock, because it's actually pretty cool what you did. I really like the way it looks, and I think we should talk about it while we're sitting here.
All right.
We are on the clock, though, in a few seconds here. We probably need another running back and tight end at this point in time, unless we want to do something like defenses. But
who's there? Who's there at tight end, actually?
Yeah.
Tight end might be more sparse, I think, than
So I cannot, for the life of me, I cannot quit Rob Gronkowski.
Okay.
There's just nothing. He doesn't look like he could be a bad pick. I know that OJ Howard is coming back. I also know that OJ Howard tore his Achilles tendon, and that's a difficult injury to come back from. Last season, just real quick here, Gronk 13th in targets, 18th in receptions, 10th in yards, 6th in touchdowns, 5th in air yards. I think as long as he's on a roster, Tom Brady is going to be feeding him, and to get him now in this tight end premium league where we really need a tight end, I don't mind him unless you have another pick you want us to go with.
Yeah, no, I'm cool with that. I think there's definitely a compelling case that you can make for Gronk in relation to any of those other guys that are there now.
Okay, so let's get Gronk out of the way. I'm not really big on Hooper or Jarwin. I think that our tight end room could actually be, I think the term is sneaky good is what all the creative minds are out there saying these days. I think he could be sneaky good. So we'll go ahead and take him, and then let's eye up this running back room here a little bit, unless you think we need wide receiver, but we're pretty loaded right there right now.
Yeah, no, I think we're good.
Yeah. So running back, someone I was even going to suggest last round, which maybe he will, maybe he won't make it here, was actually going to be Jamal Williams.
I like that Gabriel Davis pick that somebody has made too. But yeah, Jamal Williams, I'm open with.
Yeah, I think Jamal Williams could be interesting. Even McKissick is still there. Even Philip Lindsay is still there. Jamal Williams, I don't know. I see a vision where he is kind of getting like that really random Adrian Peterson usage that you just wouldn't think the Lions would be giving anybody when they had DeAndre Swift on the team. But they brought him in. He's been very productive, and he's spelled Aaron Jones for a couple years and took receiving work from a really good running back before. So the idea of him possibly doing that again, I don't think is the most far-fetched idea at this point in time in the season, and at his draft value, getting him in the 14th round feels like it could be a pretty good selection here.
Yep. I'm going to toss out a name that's going to make me feel ridiculous here, but should we keep our eye on Tevin Coleman? I've already publicly proclaimed that I have given up on Tevin Coleman in Dynasty. I'm now seeing him in a redraft league. He's on the Jets. I mean, I think it's or not a redraft, a best ball league. I think it's possible that we should pay a little bit of attention to him, especially if he is around in a couple of rounds. I probably wouldn't take him yet.
Yeah, I can't. I'm happy to add him to the queue. I don't think I want to quite take him yet, but
hey, is Mike Davis gone?
Mike Davis is gone. Yeah, he was way up.
Oh,
there.
Damian Williams is kind of interesting.
Damian Williams. Is Damian Williams up there? He is up here. Yes.
Yeah.
Damian Williams is up here if we wanted to go someone this early. Someone this early based on their current ADP.
Yeah, so I wouldn't hate Philip Lindsay here or Jamal Williams. I'll let you make that decision. Yeah,
well, I mean, I love Philip Lindsay. I really can't believe that, and Jamal Williams just got taken. I really can't believe that he went to Houston. Like, I'm almost kind of disappointed in Philip Lindsay's decision making to go there, just because it just seemed. I can't imagine it was actually the only good. I can't imagine that was the best team that wanted to take him. But he's there now. It is what it is. If I was to target another running back not named Philip Lindsay on here, I think that the running back I would probably consider going with would be someone, I mean, like Damian Williams, but I don't think Damian Williams is going to be going just yet.
Daryl Henderson, I could make a
Do you want to go with Daryl
Oh my
Henderson?
God, Frank only has one running back. That's wild. I love it.
Frank gets crazy in here. Do you want to go with Daryl Henderson? Or do you want to give Philip Lindsay a shot because he should, in all likelihood, probably at least be on the field, right? I don't think
you
he
would figure. I actually think that Henderson though will get on the field too. I don't know. You make the pick.
All right, I have
Go Lindsay, because I know that's where your heart is. We'd identified Lindsay earlier. Go with Philip.
Yeah, I'm honestly kind of surprised he made it this far because we talked about taking him earlier.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Frank only has one running back. He sent me a picture on Twitter of a best ball draft. He did an FFPC draft last year with some pretty noteworthy names in here, mind you all. Some pretty noteworthy names in this draft. I think Dave Caban may have even been one of these names in this draft. Mm-hmm. And Frank's just kind of, yeah, running back doesn't really matter. It's not a big deal. This man had like Justice Hills like his RB5, and like I don't even think he had many more than that. And he won the whole thing according to him. Maybe Frank is making this up. I don't know, Frank. You have to let us know. But I was very, very impressed that he sent me this roster that he had won with, where his running backs were just there was not much happening there, folks. And Frank won. So Frank having one running back, from what I've gathered based on what he sent me last time, is probably more on brand than we realize. I was very impressed with that.
Yeah, that takes some fortitude to do that. That really does. And I believe that this man came home with the trophy.
Yeah, he is drafting out of the 2 slot. Dalvin Cook, Calvin Ridley, CeeDee Lamb, Kenny Golladay, Brandon Ayuk. He's got Russell Wilson. I mean, yeah, and he's ready. If anyone's going to take JJ Taylor, if it's not me and Dave, it's probably going to be Frank, because there won't be anyone else left. But but yeah, no, I like what he's going for. I at least appreciate the courage. It is a true 0 RB team one way or another. I mean, very close to 0 RB. He has one. But yeah, so Dave, do you want to make a case for Daryl Henderson real quick? Because there's even a chance that he makes it back to us at this next pick if we really wanted to. Although I think we also should be keeping in mind kickers and defenses. We do not want to forget them.
Oh, yeah, we definitely don't, because I have gotten myself in a couple of bad situations where I haven't gone after them early enough. But yeah, Daryl Henderson, let's not forget, there was a point last year where Daryl Henderson looked like he was going to make everybody that had held on to him extremely happy. And I know that was towards the beginning of the season, and Cam Akers got himself worked in. But Cam Akers is playing in running back position, could easily get hurt. Obviously, we don't want that to happen, but even if he doesn't, it's not outside of the realm of possibility that McVay wants to keep him in there and getting usage. And then he's already shown us that if he does manage to get some playing time and gets inserted in there, he actually could definitely give us some things or a couple of weeks that would be useful. So at this point in the draft, I'm open to it. And I was somebody that was really, really high on Cam Akers, and I know there's a lot of good signs last year, but I just think it's dangerous to write him in stone as like an RB type of one as much as people might want to think. Yeah,
Cam Akers really, I mean, sometimes people ask me these questions like, are you fine with Cam Akers as ADP? And my answer is probably I can see it. I don't really necessarily have a problem with it, but that's also not where I'm taking him, because at the end of the day, when it comes down to drafting, where his ADP is, I'm probably not looking to take running back unless I'm just looking to do a build that's different from what I usually prefer at that spot in the draft. But Cam Akers did have a very good back half of the season. He also had not one but 2 playoff games where I believe he totaled almost 200 total yards from scrimmage, if I'm not mistaken. And that was against, I know it was Green Bay. I believe the first team was Chicago. I think it was Chicago, and then, or no, was it the Rams? I'm sorry, the Seahawks. I can't remember who it was. But Cam Akers had a very solid back half of the season. I'm going to pull it up here real quick just for the.
Yeah, I'm going to point out that Daryl Henderson in the through weeks 1 through 5 had 3 RB1 performances. Which again, like, yes, it's looking like it's Cam, but I think that just speaks to the possibility of the fact that if Cam is not going to be available. I mean, look, listen to this, right? Cam only had 1 RB1 week last year.
Yeah. Yep.
So I think that's pretty telling. I know there were different situations, and there's compelling reason to think that it would be Akers. But I don't want to write off Henderson altogether, or I don't want people out there to do that.
Yeah, I think that's definitely a smart approach to it. You make a good point. We really, the only reason we're not high on Daryl Henderson at this point in time in the season is because of Cam Akers. It doesn't have anything to do with the fact that we think Daryl Henderson is necessarily bad. Obviously, there's been times where he has not looked good, but that's if you're pulling out those sample sizes for any player, you can find plenty of bad games where you shouldn't be making a case for that player. So yeah, I mean, I don't mind Daryl Henderson. He's got everything else we want. He is athletic. He plays in a good offense. He plays with a good coach, which I think is important. And I even think that if he's on the field with Stafford, I think that I could definitely see Stafford checking down to him and making him a PPR viable running back.
Okay, so we have to make sure that we do get kickers and DSTs going at some point, and we also have to make sure too that we get some wide receivers going at some point as well.
I know. Well, I feel pretty good about our wide receiver core up front. Okay. So I think we'll be okay in the long run. I am fine with taking Justin Tucker right here.
Do it.
I think that's like super solid, and if more quarterbacks go later on, or I'm sorry, if more kickers go later on, at least we know we have one of the better ones sitting there with us. So I'm fine with Justin Tucker there.
Nice.
And then maybe I'm almost tempted to bring it back with another kicker, which I know is just not sexy. This is like my least favorite part of the draft because the thing I don't want to be doing is drafting kickers and then defense. But there is security to be had in taking kickers at these spots, especially when some of these guys who we're taking could very well turn into camp cuts in place of younger players. So trying to get a guy who you can make a legitimate case for really feels kind of like a safe way to go about drafts at this point in time.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, sometimes you have to do the things that aren't exciting, especially in a best ball league. Now, I actually haven't played around with the roster construction explorer too much on like the earliest point that you would want to take a kicker. Have you looked at that by any chance?
I have a little bit, not in recent memory. Before I go over there, so one other thing while we're talking about the RCE, so 3 kickers is always generally the way to go for kickers as well in these drafts. So I this is how I usually start it. If I go in the draft, this is what I'm looking at. All right, let me just see here real quick. So we are going into round 16. So let's just do PK2. Do you think that's good? PK2 before round 17?
Yep.
I mean, that's pretty solid. You got 11.5% win rate right there. That's not too bad. And that's just with that. It doesn't seem like that's bad. Let me see.
That's actually, yeah, I mean,
if we go to round 18, it's 11.6. I mean, it's kind of, it really seems like it's up until around 20, but do we feel confident in who we have here to fade for a few more rounds?
Yeah, I kind of think we could.
If you want to
get sold.
No, I was just going to say, if you want to get courageous, I'm up for it.
Let's get courageous.
All right. Do we want to check out wide receivers some more then?
Let's check them out quickly.
We probably need one more tight end. I usually try to leave with 4. Unless you're against that. I think given that we're taking them later, 4 is probably going to be the way to go with tight end. But wide receiver, we have Henry Ruggs, we have Rondale Moore, we have Antonio Brown, and then we have some slot guys who I think are even interesting. But are there any wide receivers here who are standing out to you right now?
I mean, not a lot. Call me crazy, but Cole Beasley actually might be my pick here.
Yeah, I mean that's a good offense to have a piece in. I'm not against going with him either. We will take him.
I like it.
Let's do it. And then let's see here, Dave. Let's play around with this construction and explore a bit, just because it'd be curious to see what we're actually looking at. So let's get the PK out of here. Yep. We started off our draft with 4 wide receivers, correct?
That is correct.
So, as I said earlier, this is the way I like to start a draft. Because I know 3 quarterbacks, 3 defenses, 3 kickers tend to be the ones that lead to the highest win rates. This is how I start, and then we're doing this in hindsight, but sometimes when you're doing this during the draft, it's kind of good to plug in some win rates beforehand just to sit, like if you're considering a couple different angles to see what you have here. So this is actually rough looking on the surface, but it doesn't necessarily have to mean that it's still a bad start. This just means that 4 wide receivers before round 5 gets you a 5.7% win rate. But there's other ways that we can, still look at what we did there. So what do we do after that, Dave? Do you remember off the top of your head?
So
I'm trying to see here. It looks like we may have gone. Well, we grabbed our QB1 then, which we haven't put in. We put in Justin Herbert.
Yep.
So QB1 in round 6, which if you're checking out RotoViz tools, you know that that's a good spot to go. So look at what that just did with our win rate.
Wow.
It just moved from 5.1% or 5.7% to 17.6. I have to be honest. I'm like actually incredibly shocked to see it. That's what that says.
Yeah, no, that is wild. I mean, that is such an aggressive win rate that you rarely ever see that.
Yeah. Now there's small sample size. It's only 17, so you take it with a grain of salt. But I don't think that small sample sizes necessarily mean that it's a tactic is a bad tactic. RotoViz has another tool called the Win the Flex tool, which really just kind of displays how valuable wide receivers are over running backs. And even, I guess, maybe even to tight ends in FFPC. I'm not sure if I've looked at it with the FFPC tight ends, but there's a legitimate argument to be made for taking a bunch of wide receivers early and really kind of embracing that 0 RB build and running with it. So even though it's only a 17%, a 17 team sample size there, I don't hate the percentage, and it doesn't make me like question whether or not that's a good process. Does it make you question anything, Dave, being a small sample size, or do you think we're still on the right track?
No, I think we're still on the right track. I mean, just because people haven't done something a lot doesn't mean that there isn't any efficacy to it. And in fact, oftentimes you will find in different situations in life, the things that people don't do actually work out pretty well.
Yeah, I agree. And again, I think I said earlier, one of my favorite starts even is tight end, where I can manage to do it. That is not something that people do often. It's more than 17 times over the course of 4 years, which is what we're just looking at here. But it's still not. I mean, think of all the drafts that have been done. Tight end and FFPC drafts is not a super common start, and that has one of the highest win rates. So it is something that is a viable option, even if most of the people are not doing that. So don't always be scared off by small sample size. I think if you apply context to everything, then you can still, lay out your process, lay out how you're doing things, and hopefully at the end of the day, still walk away with a pretty solid team overall. But we are right now moving into the 1708. The roster we're looking at is Ryan Tannehill, Justin Herbert, Justin Fields, Truva Hubbard, Leonard Fournette, Phillip Lindsay, Damian Harris, A.J. Brown, Devontae Adams, Keenan Allen, Cole Beasley, DJ Moore, Jared Cook, Rob Gronkowski, Noah Fant, and Justin Tucker. Dave, what is your gut telling you to do in this 17th round? Because a guy who I kind of almost wanted to take last time, but we didn't, and I don't even love him, is Henry Ruggs, right up there at the top, just because he gives you that splash play upside. But we need other things also.
Yep. I wouldn't. Let's look at the running backs again quickly.
All right. Yeah, we got 50 seconds here, so we got some time.
Tariq Cohen, Mike Boone, Anthony McFarland, Tevin Coleman, Todd Gurley, Kylan Hill, Reminders, Snell. Ooh, Gio. Benny Snell's almost interesting in case Pittsburgh doesn't add a running back, but you have to think that they do. Let me see wide receivers again, just in case there's anybody that's intriguing. Henry Ruggs, Rondale Moore, Antonio Brown, Elijah Moore, Jameson Crowder. Ooh, I like Jameson Crowder. Oh, Paris Campbell is really interesting, I think.
I do like Jameson Crowder here. Should we take a kicker real quick?
Yeah, just take the kicker because like those, they're all pretty similar there in that range. The wide receivers.
I'm gonna take Michael Badgley. Let's keep that Chargers stack going.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah, let's keep that Chargers stack going. And now let's really look at these wide receivers here. Defense. There's still a lot of defenses left. We're fine with defense. Let's go back to wide receiver because you are kind of right. There are. I mean, you're always right, Dave. But I don't know
about that. But
there are some different guys here. Paris Campbell scares me with the injury, which I think is fairly obvious. Sterling Shepard, I've found myself scooping up a lot lately. And then Jameson Crowder's ADP has just plummeted recently. I think his ADP has fallen almost like 100 picks over the last like couple of weeks. Jameson Crowder's ADP is going very low, and I don't see why, because I think he's probably, until proven otherwise, the most reliable wide receiver in the Jets offense.
I think that it's very possible that Jameson Crowder out-targets Corey Davis, and I think the presence of Corey Davis is a reason that people would be put off of him. But teams can have two receivers that they throw a lot to. We see a lot of teams do this. And Crowder is going to play the role, I think, where it's the easiest for him to get targeted, especially for a young passer. Crowder's the type of guy that they might rely on. Now, some of that's narrative driven there, but I don't think it's a stretch at all to say that there's reason to think that Crowder should at least be step in step with Corey Davis for targets, if not more.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. I mean, Jameson Crowder, like, I feel like his ADP has basically just been driven down because of narratives around like a trade or a cut, like, and probably really a cut, honestly, which hasn't come to fruition. I don't think it will. I don't really understand why. I don't understand how you can logically, if you're the Jets, which I know logic and the Jets haven't meshed together well over the years, but
no, they haven't.
Yeah, but I don't think that you can really find a good reason why you would do anything with Jameson Crowder. Like, why get rid of him? Like, he's been one of your more reliable targets. He's great for young quarterbacks, like you said, and he's just a guy who I personally want on my fantasy teams as long as real NFL teams want them. So Jameson Crowder's ADP being pushed down this low, if you look back at it over the course of when he was going higher, you realize that you're getting him at a great price tag right now. If you like him, like, I'm happy with scooping up Jameson Crowder and having him alongside Cole Beasley. I think that's a really nice ad.
Yeah, that definitely fits into the build very nicely.
Yeah.
Let's take a quick look though. How many defenses have gone? Because that is something that we do have to keep on top of.
Let's pull up the full board here. We can just take a look. Defenses are in blue, so we've lost 3 defenses so far.
Okay, so I think we're okay. So we probably don't have to hit that yet. Do we have our third quarterback? I don't remember.
We do. We got Justin Fields.
Oh, right.
Yeah,
so we got Justin Fields. We got Ryan Tannehill. And who was our first one?
And Justin Herbert.
Okay, yeah.
We are laying out some stacks here. If we really want to try to get creative with the stack down the line, we try to predict where Justin Herbert's going to go, and we either grab ourselves like a Bronco or a 49er, but I don't think we need to do that just yet. So we'll wait and see. We do need another tight end.
I thought we had 3.
We do. So I can ask you this later.
Oh, but you're going 4 tight end.
Unless you don't want to.
No, I don't mind. If
but I also don't want to. I also don't think I need a tight end in this round.
Yeah.
I'm really good with Jameson Crowder if he lasts through this pick, unless you want to run it back.
No, I like that. And then I think we'll come back next round maybe and check the running backs again.
All right, so it's on Avalanche here to not take our guy, and he took Mac Jones. That must be Kyle Shanahan's team. All right, so Jameson Crowder. Let's go with Jameson Crowder. PPR God, which is exactly what FFPC is, full PPR league, tight end premium. So we got Jameson Crowder and Cole Beasley. They are just ready to just compile points and sneak in the flex spots whenever one of these guys falls short. So yeah, I really like that pick. I really like kind of padding my floor with those slot guys. And slot guys are becoming more prevalent in the NFL over the course of the year. They're really kind of becoming like that more of a unsung superstar role in some of these offenses. Cole Beasley has been a stud for the Bills for the last 2 or 3 seasons now. So I really like that build and that start. Dave,
yes,
let's go back to, because we didn't earlier, and I want you to explain to the people what it is we're looking at here, your Combine Explorer, because this is a really cool tool. It looked good before. It looks even better now. You can find this on RotoViz if you're a subscriber. You can head on over to tools. All the way on the far right-hand side, there is the Prospect Workout Explorer. You click that, and it takes you right here. And you can comp any player you want to who I guess essentially performed at the Combine, or in this case had a Combine Pro Day.
Yep.
And you can comp them with their natural position, yes or no. And you can also choose to comp them to other positions on the field. Obviously, you're probably going to want to usually comp them with the position that they play. So this is pretty self-explanatory up here. So I'm not going to really go into that too much. But explain to us, if you can see this on the screen, is this good enough? Do you need me to zoom in?
Yeah, no, I think that's probably good. So what you're saying, well, actually, if you, that looked pretty darn good when you zoomed in. Actually, zoom in a little bit on that.
I'll get you real quick here. One second.
Yep. So basically, what you're looking at there is a graph of It is a scatter plot that are showing you for that player's athletic comps. So just looking at their height, weight, and then their different metrics that they produced at the combine. They're 20 comps, and it's plotting their points per game for their first 3 seasons on the bottom axis, on the x-axis, and their PPR points in their first 3 seasons total along the y-axis. So what you want to see when you're looking at this naturally is a lot of players that went for more than 15 points per game and put up like 600 points, right? So basically you're getting a sense as if those players did play a lot, and then also if their points per game were high, because occasionally you might have a player who gets lucky that a couple of his comps only played 1 or 2 games, and that drives things up. But this kind of helps you to visualize how strong of a player's group of comps is. And then it's cool too that you can have the names in there and see that as well. So you could quickly say, who are we looking at here? I actually don't remember. Is this Truva Hubbard? It's like Melvin Gordon, Joe Mixon, Miles Sanders, Noshawn Moreno, Kenyon Drake. Those are some impressive comps to begin with. So what you want to see is more names to the far right and to the top. So really to the top right. Keep in mind though, if you're a RotoViz sub and you're looking at this a lot, that the axes aren't fixed, so it could change. So if you're looking at a player that had really terrible measurables, it might be, like looking up to 10 points per game and maybe like 250 points or something like that. But yeah, this is a really cool way to just get a better sense of, what that player might look like when he's in the NFL, given what other players with similar attributes and stature have what they have done in the NFL.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, and this is, you're right, it's Truva Hubbard on here, which is exactly why I wanted to bring this up, because I thought that it's just a really good way to kind of look forward to some of the players in this rookie class. And obviously, like you said, Truva Hubbard, if he goes to the right team, that could possibly be all that is keeping him from having a solid, outlook for a fantasy rookie season, especially when you realize his measurables. You got a couple players on here who were early 1st or 2nd round draft picks who he's comping to. Honestly, his highest comps, I think Mixon, Miles Sanders are both 2nd round picks, and Melvin Gordon was a 1st, if I remember correctly.
Yep.
So, I mean, at least on the surface, you love to see it. Those are not the worst company to be a part of. Dave, we are on the clock. I actually timed the switch over perfectly.
Nice.
Not bad for a first timer.
First time, yeah.
But we have lost some defenses here, so I think maybe now we look into that.
Sure. Yeah, I don't think we need to. None of the players that are available at the other positions necessitate us going that way. So let's grab a defense.
Do we want to get super nutty with these Chargers and grab the Chargers defense too?
Do it. Yeah.
We'll take it and just see what happens here. But where are you at on correlating a team this heavily? I mean, we now have the Chargers quarterback, we have a Chargers wide receiver, we have a Chargers tight end, we have a Chargers kicker, we have a Chargers defense.
Let's just do it.
I mean, are we just getting nuts right here? Do you think that this is the way that we want this to look right now?
I mean, I don't think that there's anything I don't think that there's any compelling reason not to do it. So I'm open to it. In terms of like correlations and whatnot, I'm not sure that with the amount of pieces we have going here, I'm not even sure how to factor that in, but I don't think it can hurt us.
Yeah, I don't think it can either. I mean, I guess maybe if you wanted to talk about things that maybe more directly correlated, it's probably going to be something more like defense and running back, where if your defense is having a good game, your running back is probably getting a lot of carries and grinding down the clock. But at the end of the day, we'll still take it either way. I mean, they have a pretty solid defense when they're all healthy, and that's honestly been kind of the Chargers' biggest problem over the last several seasons is staying healthy. They've lost some key defensive players. They lost Tyrod Taylor to that really, really weird, I almost struggle to call it an injury, but incident, which ushered in the Justin Herbert era. But I do think that the Chargers defense can be very solid if given the chance and if they're all healthy. They have a lot of players who I really like and good pass rushers and just an overall decent core. And I wonder, do we take another defense here or do we take a kicker?
Probably think that we take away. Well, I mean, I think we're good on both, right? Like we're not going to run out.
Yeah, and that's kind of the thing that I'm thinking. Like, if I wanted to go kicker, I would go Cairo Santos probably and get it out of the way. Just because I believe he recently signed a deal with the Bears to stay another season, which may or may not be good for a lot of fantasy points, but maybe once in a while he hits. We can get a fourth tight end, but I think right now we're at the point where a late round tight end or a last round tight end probably gets you pretty close to what you're grabbing right now anyways.
Right. Take a quick look at running back, though.
Well, and I was going to tell you, Tevin Coleman is up there.
God, it's such an ugly pick, but I actually think it's worth it. I can't believe I'm advocating for Tevin Coleman yet again in my life, but here we are.
Do you want to just close our eyes and we'll just hit the button and see what happens here? We currently have, just real quick here, we have 4 running backs. We probably need to get 6 or 7 or 8. Yeah. So this would be number 5. We can take Coleman and see what happens.
All right, let's do it.
All right, Tevin Coleman. Pride be damned. There we go. He is now a member of our best ball squad. So
congratulations to him.
I don't hate the pick only because of what we have seen, in the much further off past than we have, more recently here. Yep. But once upon a time, I think Tevin Coleman is a guy who I think we could probably say we liked a little bit more than we do.
Oh, yeah.
Than we do now. Mm-hmm. I'm going to pull him up real quick. For those of you who may or may not remember, Tevin Coleman actually had some very productive seasons back when he played with the Falcons. I believe his last year was at 2017, 2018 maybe. I'm trying to remember exactly here.
Well, yeah, it was him and Devonta Freeman. They were kind of sharing the field. Freeman was kind of running as the 1A. He was going as the 1B, and they were actually both finishing as top 24 running backs. I want to say they did that for 3 seasons. And there was actually one season where Coleman, I think, outscored Freeman.
Yeah.
So I was very excited. There was this talk of he was going to go to Pittsburgh. So I got him in a lot of dynasty teams and stuff. And then that never panned out. Held on to him for far longer than I should have. Was always expecting too much. But now that we are grabbing him at a point in the draft where most of the players are a prayer, maybe it's okay.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure. And I think, too, so this is Tevin Coleman. I removed his rookie season because he didn't do a lot as a rookie. But after he kind of established himself a bit more, I think that what we're really looking at is kind of a guy who, if we get any semblance of that heading into this season, this is the kind of guy who we like at the spot in the draft. And Tevin Coleman's biggest issue, I think, has probably been health more so than performance. He just hasn't been able to get on the field. If I remember correctly, he played in only 8 games this past season, and he was bad when he played. He had 12.7 PPR over 8 games, but they only handed it off to him 28 times, so they weren't even really using him, which is typical of Kyle Shanahan, to bring a guy in and then you think they're going to use him 1 minute and the next minute they don't. But when you look at some of these other seasons, you see that Tevin Coleman even had a little bit of receiving upside to his game. He saw seasons of 44, 39, and 40 targets in Atlanta after his rookie season. And even in his first season with the 49ers, he did have 30 targets, which isn't a ton, but we'll take receiving upside where we can get it. I just like to see that they are getting targets and that they are at least, being used on the field and finding ways to produce. But Coleman has had some big games. During his time in Atlanta, he had a top 24 season, top 24 week, literally 50% of the time.
Yeah, it was nuts.
Yeah, that's not that bad. And in a format like best ball, the one of the best things about it is definitely the fact that you can go ahead and have these guys on your team. You'll benefit from the good weeks. You hopefully won't be hurt too badly from the bad weeks, and you'll see what happens. But I think Tevin Coleman is interesting, and if he ends up doing anything down the line here, people will probably be referencing this show, Dave. Actually,
of course,
this is what inspired them. They remember when Dave and Zach drafted Tevin Coleman on the opening episode, the pilot episode of Roster Locked, a best ball show. Hard to forget. But we are about to be on the clock. Do you have anything else you want to add on Coleman real quick here before we get ready to pick the 2108?
Yeah, no, nothing else to add there.
Okay.
I do think that here I'm starting to wonder if we should go with the DST.
Yeah, we can go with DST, and I think even kickers came off the board, even though we still have 2. You want that third kicker, but
I'd rather get that second defense locked up now than the third kicker, I think, because that's getting thin.
So yes, it is getting very thin here. There's not a lot to talk about here before we show our hand completely. Let's see if anybody who we like hang around a bit here for a second. Real quick, I'm going to go over the team just before we pick, so people listening at home can just check this out real quick. We're about to hit the 21st round. We're sitting on Ryan Tannehill, Justin Herbert, Justin Fields is our quarterback. Running back, we have Truva Hubbard, Phillip Lindsay, Damian Harris, Tevin Coleman, Leonard Fournette. Wide receiver, DJ Moore, Jameson Crowder, Devontae Adams, Keenan Allen, Cole Beasley, AJ Brown. Tight end, Noah Fant, Jared Cook, Rob Gronkowski. Place kickers, Justin Tucker and Michael Badgley. Again, we probably want 3. Defense, we're sitting on just the Chargers defense. We will be getting a second and hopefully also a third here before the end of the draft. We are 2 picks from being up, Dave, and the defenses that I wanted, one of the Giants just went. I kind of wanted the Giants. I think that they're an interesting defense, but I also don't hate, despite the fact that they're not always the best team, the Seahawks right here. I actually have their stats pulled up here. They had 46 sacks last season, 14 interceptions, 14 fumble recoveries, no touchdowns, but I think that that's a pretty solid defense, even though they definitely play in a more tough division, offensively speaking.
Yep.
Are you good with the Seattle defense here?
Yeah, I'm good with that. Let's do it.
All right, so let's do that. And then I just want to look at PK real quick. Place kicker's not horrible. We won't talk about kickers just at the moment here because we can just pick one up if that's what we really want to do. Let's go back to wide receiver real quickly here, and then running back. We'll be up in a couple picks here. Anyone here at wide receiver stand out to you right now? Because I can tell you from a personal standpoint, I don't hate Sterling Shepard. I know you like Paris Campbell.
Yep. Oh, your boy, Russell Gage.
Well, and the thing is, if you look here, you'll see that this is actually a Russell Gage jersey that I'm rocking right now. So I came ready to represent and show the Russell Gage love right here on this episode.
I think that maybe we should go with Russell Gage. John Brown is a pick I don't hate either at this point.
I like John Brown too. If we want to talk these receivers here, who would you say has more upside between Sterling Shepard and Russell Gage? Because I think it's an interesting one.
That is a really, really interesting question. I would say at this point, I actually would I would make the case that Russell Gage has the most upside because we saw what happened when he stepped into that wide receiver 2 role last year, and I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility to assume that Julio might miss some time. And also the other thing that we've seen throughout Jones's career is that he will play through a lot of injuries, which sometimes brings down the numbers. But what that would allow Russell Gage to do is, even though Julio's playing, it could actually become a game where Gage gets a lot of volume. There's a number of games last year where he was at that 7-8 target range. So I would make the case that he actually has more upside, where Sterling Shepard, there's more places for the ball to go with Kenny Golladay there now. I think that kind of changes the dynamic they have there as well.
Yeah, I agree. I think the one thing that I like about Sterling Shepard is just that it seems like whenever he's on the field, he's producing at a pretty high level. He's constantly making plays. Gage, sometimes I wonder how often we get that. But then I also see the Falcons of just being another bad defense where they're going to be throwing the ball, 40 times a game just to maintain pace. Like I'm not sure that this defense is going to do enough to keep the offense or to put the offense in a position to be running the ball and working the ground game. Sterling Shepard is gone, so we can't take him even if we want him. I would say right now it's between defense or Russell Gage on offense. The only other thing I want to look at real quick here is running back, but there's not a lot I'm liking here at the moment. I'm kind of fine with going Russell Gage here if that's what you want to do right now.
Yeah, let's do Russell Gage unless we think that we need the DST.
Well, we have 2, and I don't think that these 1, 2, 3, 4. I don't think all 7 of these are going to be gone.
All right, do it then. Take Gage. Also, dude, Frank's running backs, I love it. It really, it's like every back that we had mentioned for the queue. I'm going to read it off to you because I love it so much.
Okay.
So he got Dalvin Cook to start. Then it's Daryl Henderson, Marlon Mack, Damian Williams. I really enjoy that.
Yeah. Well, some people have their practice squad guys. So that's what Frank has. He has a practice squad of running backs, but it's awesome because when we're looking at him as, one of the top teams this year, we're not even going to be surprised. So
Right.
I don't think the world knows enough about just how courageous Frank actually gets in these draft rooms here. But you're right, it's literally our Q. Like it is perfect.
So yeah, he wasn't lying when he said that. We were basically naming his Q. I love it.
Yeah, we really were. But it's a solid build. I mean, shoot, everyone who he has, we were considering taking them. I think I think sometimes we think adding these guys sounds crazy, especially when you realize they're your RBs 2, 3, and 4. But Frank has a lot of solid picks in here. He has a lot of guys who I like. He has Logan Thomas. He has Jonnu Smith, who I think will still be a factor, even if that Hunter Henry kind of muddies the water a little bit. I still think that Jonnu Smith is a very versatile tight end who can be used in a lot of areas in the field. I wouldn't even be shocked to maybe see Jonnu do something like lighting up in the slot if it's not always Jacoby Myers with Julian Edelman retiring, just because I think that Smith is just such an athletic tight end that he is able to be used in a variety of numbers or a variety of areas in the field. We even saw him do a little bit of running back action in Tennessee once upon a time.
Yeah, I actually hope that the Patriots, as a Patriots fan, I have to say I'm really looking forward to the exciting things that they could do. I would love to see him get used out of the slot. I would love to see him get in some rushing attempts. We I don't know if you've listened to any of the clips of Belichick talking about Jonnu Smith, but he loves the guy.
I mean, he seems like a Bill guy. I mean, just looking at him, he looks like he's probably one of the hardest workers in the weight room. He's an extremely physical player. He's constantly making plays after the catch, which I'm sure Bill loves stuff like that too. And again, versatility. I think Swiss Army knife players and Bill Belichick were meant to go together. So if he has any plans to use Jonnu Smith like that, I think that it could really be Jonnu season, as they say, and we could see some big things out of him. And I mean, personally, I wouldn't be shocked if he looked like more of a value than he does right now when it's all said and done.
I mean, the second Jonnu Smith shows up to that facility, Belichick is going to be walking around with an eggplant emoji.
Yeah,
like right off it's coming out. He's going to be, grabbing binders to put in front of himself.
And you can't even blame him. Even blame him. He'll be embarrassed, but Jonnu Smith does that to you, man. Like that's what Jonnu does to you. He makes you embarrass yourself. But
hey, can I throw out 2 running back names to keep in mind?
You
Benny
can.
Snell and Kalen Ballage. I would not hate adding one of them late.
Benny Snell.
Assuming Frank doesn't do it before we do.
Well, he just got Darrington Evans, which I actually really liked. So good on you. Good on you, Frank, for that. Benny Snell and Kalen Ballage. I'm surprised they haven't just moved Kalen Ballage off this off of the site here. I didn't think that Kalen Ballage was still in the league. I know he plays for the Steelers, but and that's interesting because that was even a very surprising signing for the Steelers. There's been talk about them possibly taking a running back in the draft, which they could obviously still do, but I think I don't hate Benny Snell. I even like Anthony McFarland, who did not do very much at all in his rookie season, but has a relatively decent athletic profile. He was a pretty good prospect coming into college. His biggest downside was honestly he played at Maryland, which is not where a lot of good running backs or really any offensive players are going these days. But I don't completely hate Anthony McFarland.
Yep.
Do you want to grab? We're on the clock right now. Do you want to grab a defense so we can say we have a third?
I think we better grab the D here.
All right. If we can make a logical explanation for either of these 3 remaining, who are you taking and why is it not the Houston Texans? I'm probably going to go with Cincinnati just on the off chance that maybe there's something better about them in 2021 than there was in 2020.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. Honestly, it's really like a dice roll.
Or maybe we go with the Texans. They had more sacks than I thought last year. I just can't see them doing anything.
Seeing it, if they have a crappy quarterback coming, that could lead to a lot of points for the other teams. So I would go Atlanta or Cincinnati.
All right, let's go with Atlanta. Maybe they
Russell Gage and his defense stack.
Right. Well, right. Atlanta's going to give up points. Russell Gage is going to go get them back. So let's. I don't think that's quite the way how it's supposed to work, but we'll take it for right now. All right, we need to look here real quick. Dave, I have a question for you that I'm going to ask because we have a minute here.
Yep.
How do you prefer to build out these rosters in terms of running back, wide receiver, and tight end? I don't think that there necessarily has to be a concrete answer. I usually go with 4 tight ends at the very least, and then I probably end up with 7 or 8 wide receivers or running backs. Do you ever tend to go more heavily towards one position than the other based on how you started your draft?
Very, very rarely. Normally, I'm kind of, like we talked about earlier, popping into that roster construction explorer, gathering up a plan, and then pretty strictly following that. So it's rare. The only exception would be sometimes I do a team where I just do 4 running backs, 3 quarterback, 3 DST, 3 kicker, 3 tight ends, and the rest is wide receiver.
Yeah, and in the FFPC format.
Yep.
Mind you. So, okay, I mean, that's obviously we're already past that point, so we won't be doing that.
Right.
But that is something interesting to consider.
That team, like when you do that build, it actually has like an okay win rate, and it's always really fun to watch and see how that plays out. But teams do win with that build.
Now, would that be? I'm assuming that's going to be more so a running back heavy build, or I'm sorry, a running back heavy to start the draft.
Correct.
In the early rounds. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's really like pounding the even sometimes with the first 4 picks, and then just taking the value that you can get elsewhere.
That's when you turn in your card for the day. You turn in the RotoViz card for the day, and you just go full.
Yep.
You go full RB heavy here, but or robust RB.
Yep. You take off the RotoViz gear.
Mm-hmm.
You get your computer. You go to a dark room. You draft. You leave it, and then you never speak about it again.
Yeah, it's a very lonely lonely process.
Yep.
Unless, of course, you're over at Player Profiler. I know they love their robust RB guys. So
yes, they do.
Hoping to have some Player Profiler guests later on the show here. But right now, we're here with Dave Caban, co-owner, senior fantasy analyst at RotoViz, and we are going full on 0 RB and about to be up again in another 4 picks here. Dave, where do you want to go at this point in time with these RBs? Do you want to maybe go with a Benny Snell or a Kalen Ballage?
Yeah, I do actually. And to be honest with you, between the two, I actually want to go with Benny Snell, just because the team knows that he wasn't awesome for them last year, but they could point to some performances that he did have there. I guess you could say that it was impressive that Ballage was able to show up last year in, the Chargers offense and kind of get going right off the bat. But I think I would lean Snell.
Yeah, and Snell is who I've wanted to take mainly because I'm going to draft Snell here real quick. Snell's a guy who I've wanted to take, even though I do like Anthony McFarland. Snell's a guy who I think that if the cards were in play for him, I think we would have seen a little bit more of him last year. And the fact that we didn't, and it was a little bit more of Snell even in that role, kind of tells me that it may take something unforeseen for Anthony McFarland to get that role, even though I really do like him a lot. And then the Ballage signing, I almost kind of interpret that more as maybe a sign that they're not looking to draft a running back early. And because of that, they're kind of padding that RB depth chart with a cost-efficient signing, and they're going to see what happens in the draft. But Kalen Ballage is a very peculiar signing because that's a guy who you probably could have gotten after the draft if you really didn't. If you really wanted to add him, you probably could have done so afterwards. And they got him before the draft, which I just think is kind of, it is what it is. I wonder if there's more to be had there than just drafting Kalen or adding Kalen Ballage. Yeah,
that's going to be like the entire Steelers offense is one of the more intriguing things as we step into next year, because what does Ben Roethlisberger look like? There was a lot of signs of him slowing down last year. How do these 3 wide receivers, maybe even 4 wide receivers, you could say, because I think James Washington's pretty good. How do they all interact? And how, did the soft schedule that they play last year to start off things really propel them? Because they were, undefeated for a very long time and then didn't not look that good at all, towards the end of the season. So Definitely one of the more interesting teams, one of the more interesting backfields. I feel like if Najee Harris, for example, somehow went to Pitt, like people, what do you think that at this point people would be losing their minds? Because I think if that had been going into last year, people would have lost their minds if they'd signed like one of these big, just because of all the running back success we saw in years past.
Yeah, well, and I think people. So I think Najee Harris is probably the kind of guy, if he goes to Pittsburgh, I think he probably becomes kind of the Clyde Edwards-Helaire rookie, where he's going close to the first round, if not in the first round at the start of drafts. Admittedly, rookies are not my strong point, so I kind of know more right now about what people are saying just based on hearsay than I know about metrics and all that stuff. I admittedly pay more attention to the rookie stuff afterwards. But from what I see on Najee, from what I see on the hype, I do think that him going to a team like Pittsburgh would do a lot for him, at least in terms of fantasy. I know there's some concerns around the Steelers when it comes to their offensive line. Marquise Pouncey just retired, so they definitely have some work to do there as well. But I think that if Najee Harris were to go there, the thing that has always made Steelers running backs attractive has been Tomlin's commitment to really running his starter and using his starter compared to other teams where you almost expect more of a committee approach. Mike Tomlin has usually been the opposite of that, where he is, he's letting his bell cow running back work. And I think for that reason alone, people will be very high on Najee Harris if he landed with the Steelers.
Yeah, I definitely believe that. All right, are we on the clock?
We're just about to be, and I almost wanted to get that last kicker out of the way, unless you think we should wait on that.
Let's do it. No, let's do it.
I was going to go with Josh Lambo.
Yep, do it.
I believe he missed last season, but I will
be honest, I don't pay a tremendous amount of...
You're preaching to the choir here.
Yeah, where's Jennifer Akins of 444? She loves kickers, right? She actually puts out a lot of good stuff on kickers. We need her for this.
I know. If this was Millionaire, we'd be phoning a friend right now.
Yeah, we would. We would.
But we're gonna go with Josh Lambo here. I think that's an okay pick because I think I've had him a couple other times. I think he was injured last season, but he's been a good kicker in the past. So we're gonna go with him and trust our history here. Yep. All right, we have 3 more picks to go, and we have officially closed out our kicker room, our defense room, and our quarterback room, assuming that we want 3 of each position there. As far as running backs go, we are sitting on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, it looks like. Wide receivers, I believe we have 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We have 7 wide receivers with 3 picks left to go. So this is where we kind of start to go get our guys, I would say. And
I kind of wanted to find like a rookie running back to go after here.
Well, we can do that.
I don't know if there's anybody that I love. So it's interesting. There's Jared Patterson that hits a couple of like that gets into like really good company and some of the things that I would look like, but I'm not sure that the overall profile is there when I consider how small he is, but he is kind of interesting. I don't think that he'll get drafted to that late though. So I almost want to look more at the rookie wide receivers and see if there's a name that pops out for me. But the rookie wide receivers is really hard because you don't know if they're stepping onto like a team where there's already 3 other established wide receivers. It looks like somebody just took Diami Brown, which is a nice pick. Yep. Let me not look at rookies only though. So I'd like to draft maybe one more running back, but I don't know, man. None of those names care right now. So let's look at wide receiver and then.
So real quick, I'm just going to say that we are on the clock, and if we wanted to try to round out more of a Charger stack, we have Joshua Kelly, who saw some snaps last season.
You know what? I mean, I don't hate it. He looked good towards the beginning of the year.
And I'd even be willing to maybe consider the fact that perhaps there was some bad coaching there that just didn't let him be used in his best way he could be. I really have no idea. But I think Joshua Kelly could be an interesting pick here.
Let's just do it. Let's do it.
Let's do it. And he's a big back. That's the other thing, too. With Joshua Kelly, he's a big back. And if there's one thing I do remember from last season, because I had him on some teams when he was getting touches, the one thing that I remember with Joshua Kelly was he really kind of got under Austin Eckler manager's skin, because you would see him pop up in the red zone from time to time or near the goal line. And if for whatever reason their new head coach, whose name is evading me at the moment, but if they opt to use Joshua Kelly as kind of that grinder down the goal line, then we might see a couple of weeks where he sneaks in, gets a touchdown. Maybe he runs off, 30 or 40 yards in a game and gets you some double-digit weeks.
Brandon Staley. That's the name you're looking for.
Brandon Staley. Yes, that's correct. Yep. I actually don't pay attention to much on the West Coast.
Right. These new coaching changes, it's going to take me a little bit to fully have them in the memory bank as well. Mm-hmm. Oh, wow. Tyrod Taylor. That's an interesting pick.
It is, because that could be some tremendous value there. We knew this room was sharp. We knew it was one of the sharper rooms we were gonna be in here. That's actually a very, very good pick. I like that pick. So hats off to Yosemite.
All right, hey, let's take a look. So I think all we have left to do is draft 2 wide receivers, right?
Unless we want to also get a 4th tight end, which
all right.
Which I don't care. Let's look at wide receiver.
You know who we won't be drafting anymore is Julian Edelman. When we were doing our practice for this, we thought we might be making a sneaky pick, grabbing him in the last round of our draft, but that didn't happen.
We did.
Okay, I'm gonna offer up 2 interesting names. Well, Kiki Kute is an interesting one. Tim Patrick.
You see who I just put in the?
I love that. Yeah, that has to be one of them. I love that.
Yeah. Tim Patrick, where's he at here?
He's way down.
There he is. Okay, I got him.
I guess not way down, but down substantially. And then, oh my God, Randall Cobb actually maybe should be an interest on there too. Actually,
is Cobb a free agent or is he still with the Texans?
Well, let's just confirm this. I'm looking it up.
Yeah, let's.
I thought that. I believe that he still is with the Texans, which is what I thought, but
someone just took Jalen Guyton. I guarantee you,
those bastards.
I guarantee you, it was because he saw us put him in the queue. That's okay. That's okay. He doesn't know about Tyron Johnson.
All right. Hey,
I think that's who it is. At least I believe Tyron.
I'm pretty sure that I believe that Cobb is still on the Texans contract active.
We can put Randall Cobb in there, and if you want to talk about negative game script impacting a game, you might not find a more negative game script in 2021 than that of the Texans.
Yep.
Randall Cobb, 38 catches last year, 441 yards, 3 touchdowns.
So we want him or Kuti?
I like Kiki Kuti.
I'm thinking let's give Kiki a home on our team.
Okay, let's add Kiki Kuti. Did someone take him? No, I don't think so. He did. I think I'm just. Oh, I see him right here. All right, we got Kiki Kuti. I'm gonna get Randall Cobb off the queue. We're probably not gonna go back to back Texans here.
No.
And we have one more pick to make. We have. Let me see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We only have 6 running backs. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Oh, we have 7. We have 7 running backs. So right now I'd say, do we want to go with another running back? Do we want to go with a tight end here late to see if there's a guy who just maybe he hits unexpectedly? Our tight end core is probably actually pretty good.
I think it's pretty set. Yeah. If we took a running back, I'm not even. Well, I mean, I guess maybe we could toss in Jarrett Patterson just for giggles.
I also know is it Javian Hawkins as a Blair Andrews special?
No. Don't let Blair take credit for Javian Hawkins. I was the one that originally identified him and got everybody talking about him. Blair might disagree with this, but we were in the we were in a chat about the rookie guide, and I had just finished my piece, which was the breakaway rush score. This was way back when we started working on the first rookie guide, and I was like, guys, Javian Hawkins crushed the breakaway rush score thing. I'm looking at his stuff. I actually had him as my RB3 before I realized just how undersized he was going to be. And then Blair was like, oh, maybe I need to look into him. Then independently, Blair's research also Hawkins was a player that popped. But
Okay.
I don't want this out there that Hawkins is Blair's guy. I was on Blair. Like, I'm really kidding. Because
I saw this in the RotoViz Slack.
I think the whole thing about like people being on but having like their player that somehow theirs is ridiculous, because there's a million people out there scouting players right now and like doing fantasy and all that stuff, and there's always numerous people on these guys.
Although you still can't tell me another guy who's a JJ Taylor guy, correct?
Correct.
Yes, which is probably more of an indictment on me than it is my wokeness, but we still have time to see what happens. We are officially on our last pick, so I guess it's between running back or wide receiver right now. Unless you want a tight end, no. where I'm scooping up Jacob Hollister at the end of drafts.
Yeah, no. I want a wide receiver here.
Wide receiver, okay. What about someone like Scotty Miller? Tyler
That's exactly
Johnson?
what I was going to say. I was going to say one of those guys, and I actually think it should be Scott Miller.
You think? Yeah, if you just do a quick stat comparison.
Because I mean, I would want to make a case, and I actually think that Johnson probably should get into the rotation. But for a best ball league, let's go Scott Miller. I think he actually might contribute to us 1 week.
Yeah, and you know what they haven't done yet? Who I think Scott Miller kind of played that role before he came to town. I think it was Antonio Brown who kind of replaced Scott Miller, and now we're looking at Scott Miller. He just had over 500 yards last season. And he's so explosive. He's super fast. He gets down the field. He just plays a very good brand of ball with that Tom Brady offense. So I think that Scott Miller is a very nice pick. The draft is wrapping up here, Dave. Before we get out of here, we're gonna let these last couple of picks be made. We'll do one more rundown of our roster. Let us then we'll go into any final words that we may have before we head out, and we'll call this hopefully a good first episode, and be back for more later on. But the next few picks are coming in. Do you have any comments on anything before we go? Actually, I have a question for you. If you don't have anything to share, I have something you can let us know right now. Tell us a little bit real quick just about the breakaway rush score that you mentioned, because I think that's an interesting thing you're not really going to find anywhere on the internet unless you subscribe to RotoViz. What is breakaway rush score, and how are we using it this time of year to identify prospects? Yeah,
so breakaway rush score basically gets a lot at what you might expect when you hear the name of it. But a couple of years ago, I've been wondering, you hear a lot of talk about players being really explosive, and lots of times I wasn't entirely convinced that players we were labeling as explosive actually were explosive, or I was like, how do you actually quantify this? So I started looking at, and it's hard to get college play-by-play data, but I found some college play-by-play data and went back as far as I could, looking at the amount of runs that players had over 15, 20, 30, 40, 50 yards. And I did find that there happens to be a fairly significant relationship between a player's ability to break long runs in college and him then being successful in the NFL. Now, some of that was the fact that players that get a lot of attempts have more opportunities to actually make these plays happen. But I did something this year where I accounted for the fact that some players did not play full seasons because of everything going on with COVID, or that you might have players that get hurt the first couple of weeks of the season, they miss the rest of the year. So I'm basically looking at the runs of 15 or greater, 20 or greater, 40 or greater, because those, when I blend them together and I look at the different options, tend to be the most predictive, the best predictors of points per game scoring when players actually make their way to the NFL. And then I'm accounting for the volume piece of it by saying, I'm going to look at the carries per game that each player got in their college career, multiply that by 12 game seasons, put every player at 48, and then use that player's percentage of breakaway rushes on that amount to come up with this breakaway rush score. There's a lot to throw out there, but what we do find is that it is one of the most competitive metrics you can find when trying to predict players' first 3 seasons and the points per game that they might get. And then also what I really like about it too is it helps you bust some of the narratives that you might find on players. This was a couple of years ago, but the thing that really opened me up to the fact that there might be more to this, and I started doing more research on it, was Royce Freeman in the middle of his college career suffered an injury, and a lot of people said that he lost his explosiveness after it. But it was completely ridiculous because his breakaway rushes on a percentage basis actually went up after the injury. So when people saying he lost his explosiveness, it didn't really ring true. So like it's a good way to check if what you're hearing about a player in a narrative perspective is true or not. And then also it helps you find guys like Javian Hawkins that you might not have looked at. And you can take a look and say, okay, like there's more to this player. Let me look into this profile. All things with running backs, it's really hard to find things that are like, it's a very hard thing to model running backs, and draft position is still a key piece of it, but more so even than just draft position, where they land. But it's one of the things that's been most helpful for me to look at. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, no, I've obviously I'd never heard a breakaway rush score before RotoViz. If I'm not mistaken, I think it was actually you who I sent a message to in the RotoViz Slack, and I was like, hey, tell me a little bit about this thing. And now ever since you mentioned it, I definitely want to reference it. This last article that you put out was just really great on kind of giving us the backstory of it, along with a really great look at the running backs who we have here. So if you are a RotoViz subscriber, if you're listening right now, check out Dave's article on breakaway rush score over at RotoViz. Dave, we're going to read through the team one more time, and then we're going to get out of here because our draft has officially concluded.
Yep.
Again, we were picking out of the 108. We decided to go pretty hard 0RB build here, and we started the draft with 4 wide receivers in Devontae Adams, A.J. Brown, Keenan Allen, DJ Moore. We then went with Noah Fant at tight end, followed by Justin Herbert at quarterback. The first running back came off the board for us at round 7 when we grabbed Leonard Fournette, followed by Jared Cook, Ryan Tannehill, Damian Harris, Justin Fields, Truva Hubbard, Rob Gronkowski, Philip Lindsay, kicker Justin Tucker, slot guy Cole Beasley, followed by Michael Badgley, and another slot guy, Jameson Crowder. We got the Chargers defense, Tevin Coleman, Seattle defense, Russell Gage, Atlanta defense, Benny Snell, Josh Lambeau, Joshua Kelly, Kiku T, and then Scott Miller. And in total, Dave, we had one. I'm just going to hand count these real quick. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I think we have a 6-way stack of Chargers. So my takeaway from this is that if the Chargers do well, this team is a runaway champion. I don't know if there's any other way you can view it other than that. What do you think of the team overall? And then we're going to get us out of here.
I actually really like this team because I think that there's such a solid core group of wide receivers for them to build off. Then the tight ends, there's a lot of potential there. Fant and Gronkowski were picks that I liked at the time. But when you consider the fact that Jared Cook is going to be playing with Justin Herbert, the steps forward that I expect him to see above his ADP, because we have seen Cook be successful in the past, but I think in this situation, taking over from Hunter Henry, I think a lot of people are going to be wishing that they drafted Jared Cook earlier than they did. It's a typical 0 running back team, and it's hard to look at the running backs and get excited about them. But I think the way that we spread them out, there's some potential there. So overall, I really like this team. Solid guys too that rounded out the wide receiver core, like Jameson Crowder, Cole Beasley. So we're getting some guys that should have a fair amount of volume. Russell Gage has a little bit of upside, then Miller and Kuti at the end. I overall really do like this team. I actually, in comparison to a lot of the best ball teams that I would have, and the way that this team was put together, I thought it was put together in a fashion that really made a lot of sense, which is one reason why I like doing best ball drafts live versus doing them in the slow drafts, because I find in the slow drafts, like I don't put things together, which is weird, but somehow having less time makes me actually think more about how I'm going to structure them. And I think this was a team that was structured very well.
Yeah, I think sometimes it's definitely good to think on your feet, and you tend to recall a little bit more when you realize your back's up against the wall than you do. It's that adrenaline rush that hits, during a live best ball draft.
Yep.
But that, I think, is going to do it for the first episode, what I've been calling the pilot episode of Roster Locked, a best ball show. I appreciate everyone who stopped in today. I appreciate all the comments and everyone who took time out of their day to even just maybe take a quick peek of it if you didn't have time to view the whole show. We are sitting on just over 2 hours here, but thank you for working with me through the technical difficulties. Thank you for working with me on Twitter, supporting me, getting this show going. Dave, thank you so much for all of your help over these last couple of weeks, just to hear out my idea, work with me on getting this thing troubleshot and run to make sure it was being gone to perfection. And I appreciate you coming on this show. You are a tremendous tremendously appreciated. So thank you so much for that.
Yeah, you're welcome. I will have to definitely get back on. Glad to be here with you on your first maiden voyage. And I'm going to say that I normally would hang out after, talk with you, go through a couple of things, but this Coca-Cola coffee has had me needing to go to the bathroom for quite a while now. So when we hang up, I am gone and we can regroup later.
I'll get you in the Twitter streets. But,
okay.
But all right. So thank you again, everyone. We will be back with another episode probably the next week or the following, to be determined, but we will definitely be back. So thank you again. For Roster Locked, for Dave Caban, I'm Zach Krueger, and this has been the pilot episode of Roster Locked, a best ball show. Have a great evening, everybody.